This story is concerning wildlife. It's concerning a rhino.
A rhino?
Right? Yeah,
okay.
rhino. I used to live in Kenya when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
And we were in this wildlife park in a grey Morris Minor. This rhino started chasing us. There's me and my sister in the back seat.
Right.
It was like something out of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
We were turning around saying, "Believe it, Dad. Just put your foot down, Dad. We're in a field. Put your foot down." This rhino was chasing us.
One from Mark here in Derby. Went on holiday for our first romantic holiday to Tunisia years ago. Decided to take my girl into a petting zoo. I got a bag of food to feed the animals. A giant goat then went for me, putting its front legs over my shoulders and proceeding to headbutt me over a fence into one of the pens, covering me in the food and making my nose bleed. I got out of the pen, then the goat and all his mates attacked me again, sending me running and screaming like a girl out of the zoo, with my girlfriend rolling with laughter on the floor.
A tarantula climbed up the bottom of the bed on the sheet.
Yeah.
And it walked all the way up. It's eyeball to eyeball.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, what am I going to do when it climbs over my face? But then a miracle happened. It raised its 2 front legs and waved them around. And then it turned around and walked down the side of the sheet.
Boris Johnson been attacked by an ostrich. The former PM was enjoying a safari trip with his family when the bird leaned into his car and went oi oi and pecked his hand. In footage shared online, he quickly jerked from the ostrich, don't dirty minds, away from the ostrich, and shouted, "Oh, Christ, get hell," before driving off. And so I just set it out there. Have you been attacked by an animal? When I was about 7, says Trevor Jenkins, on holiday in Spain in the 70s, a monkey pulled my long hair. It was long because it was the 70s. I was in floods of tears. And as the family car drove out the car park, an elephant ripped off the car mirror. We got the message. Spanish animals aren't to be trusted. Jeremy, Brittany here from the United States. I was spurred by a rooster in my right foot a few years ago. Spurred? How do you get spurred by a rooster?
One here from Dan in Hampshire. Morning, Mike. Is an Aussie that has been dive-bombed by our version of the Magpie, which is much bigger, every springtime.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 6 and we have reached, ladies and gentlemen, Friday. It is the end of the week and we have had quite a week. It's been quite extraordinary. It's Friday the 25th of July and all I can say to you is that, you know, if you manage to make it through the weekend, good luck to you and well done. I tried to battle my way home last night after having been down to Sussex, down to Surrey, looking into Kent, doing a bit of driving around, visiting some friends of mine, came back into town, did a bit of drinking with my colleagues here at Talk, and then tried to get home. Couldn't get home because the Rotherhithe Tunnel was closed. There was some kind of gridlock from Elephant and Castle all the way to Greenwich. Nobody could see what they were doing. Everyone was walking home. I don't know what's going on with this country, but I have to tell you, the superstructure, the infrastructure, appears to be completely falling down around its ears. Coming up this morning, we've got plenty to talk about. Front pages, of course, many of them all about the doctors' strike, which is underway. I think it gets underway officially in about an hour's time. 7 a.m. is when they all walk out. So if you're hoping to get seen by a doctor this morning, I'm afraid you will be out of luck because they're going to be out for 5 days. It's going to cost the country £87 million. It's going to be something like 250,000 appointments missed as a result. And for what exactly? Wes Streeting is saying that these strikes are posing a threat to the NHS as we know it. Keir Starmer's begging the doctors not to do it. He's begging them to please, you know, call it off. But of course, he has absolutely no sway at all because they want more money. They're very greedy. Front page of the Daily Telegraph has got farms closed at a record rate after the inheritance tax raid. More than 6,000 agricultural, forestry and fishing businesses have shut in just 1 year. Front page of the Daily Mail, it's got Wes Streeting saying, "I won't cave in to the militant doctors." Best story of the day, though, is in The Sun. Front page, they found a migrant gang who are based in a free hotel where they are put up at taxpayers' expense somewhere in North London. Basically what they do is every day they wake up, they take some very, very empty bags, they go into the West End, Liberty in particular is the shop that they target, and they just basically go and shoplift everything that they can until they can't take any more. Taking a liberty, they take Gucci stuff, they take Prada stuff, they go to John Lewis and nick a load of stuff there, and quite frankly, it is ridiculous. A whistleblower said, police rarely attend, we can only hold a shoplifter for 4 hours, it's getting out of control. So they've got gangs now of people who basically are going into shops, nicking stuff, and expecting nothing to happen to them, because nothing really ever does. Absolutely extraordinary stuff. Charlie Rowley's here as well. Very good morning to you, Charlie.
Good morning.
Nice to see you. We'll be talking about what is going wrong in Downing Street. That could take a while. Also, we'll be talking about the incredible Hulk. Hulk Hogan, of course, that is, who's died over the last few hours overnight. And there's so many stories that we have to talk about to do with migrants. You know, it turns out there was another demonstration last night in Epping. The police policed it, but there were so many of them. The police were also policing another demonstration in Canary Wharf, where a load more migrants have gone. It looks as though the council in Epping have agreed to move the migrants out of the Bell Hotel, but nobody knows where they're going to go. And unfortunately, for the rest of us, we are continuing to pay for the lifestyles of a load of people who have come here from another land just because they fancy living a slightly better life than they would do wherever they came from. It's absolutely crazy. 0344 499 1000. Meanwhile, we'll talk about Jeremy Corbyn. He, of course, launched his new party yesterday. Nobody knows what it's called. Nobody knows who's in charge of it. Nobody knows how long it's going to last. But it's a massive threat, apparently, to the Labour Party, who think they're going to lose about half of their votes to this sort of ragtag bunch of complete and utter socialist planks. Meanwhile, there's some wildfires going on in Cyprus. Tesla shares have tumbled overnight because apparently Americans are not too keen on electric cars, and neither are we. The French are going to recognise Palestine, and One Direction have decided to come up with a load of sex toys. I don't know why we're even doing that story, but it seems like we should. 0344 499 1000 is the number. Don't forget, try and cheer up, even though there's not much to be happy about, because it is Friday, the weekend is coming. Oh, there's going to be some travel chaos as well, as if we didn't know. So, of course, we're going to get Simon Calder on. This is the home of common sense. This is Morning Glory. Let us get it on. And a very good morning to you. It's 7 minutes past 6. We might as well kick things off with Julie from Bexley, who says, good morning, Mr. Graham. I heard that Jeremy Corbyn is having trouble naming his new political party. My suggestion would be the Far Leftovers. That's not bad. I quite like that. Charlie Rowley, very good morning to you.
Good morning. Hi.
We've reached sort of peak ridiculousness, haven't we, now? I mean, we're now sort of just... I wake up every day thinking, how much worse can it get? Surely it can't get any worse. And it just keeps getting worse.
It's hard to believe, isn't it? But, you know, each day you wake up, you see front pages of the newspaper hoping for some joy and pleasure and good news. I mean, you might get it on, as you say, with One Direction.
One Direction.
Some sort of pleasure in one way or another. But the bad news just keeps on rolling in day after day, and it's the start of the summer where I fear news is only going to go in one direction. In one direction.
There we are again.
And it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse.
Yeah, I mean, we're in technically the summer, as you say, recess. You know, they gave up Parliament on Tuesday. The Labour government, though, however, are still haplessly hopeless, aren't they? There's nothing good going on. Even when Narendra Modi came for a state visit from India, all that came out of it really was that it was great news for India, because it looks like, you know, Indian companies are going to be able to bring people into Britain, Indian companies are going to be able to get breaks on national insurance, Indian companies are going to be able to start businesses in the British Isles, and they're going to be given, you know, preferential treatment by the government. And meanwhile, all the people I'm talking to are going, well, is there anything in it for us?
Yeah.
And they're going, well, yeah, of course, you can go to India and work if you want. Nobody's going to do that.
No.
We are not going to go to India to work. I mean, you're not, I'm not. I don't know anyone that's going to, you know, fancy. I mean, Goa's very nice at this time of year, I'm sure, as is, you know, Madras, even though you can't call it that anymore, Bombay, Mumbai, Delhi. I'm sure it'd be great, but there's not a lot of traffic going in that direction. What we're going to get is a load of Indian firms coming here, setting up bogus companies, getting tax breaks and national insurance breaks, and making a bucket load of money, taking taking it all back to India.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't that the deal? Isn't that the deal that we've got?
Well, totally, because, if you are going to plan on leaving the country, if you are going to leave the country, as many millionaires have done because of the inept way in which the Labour government are running the show, people are going to go to Dubai or Singapore. They're going to make money. They're not going to go, as you say, to India.
Right.
And it just is beggars belief, just only a short time after the one-year anniversary of this new government, where one of the first things that they did was put up national insurance contributions, having told the country over the last few years and the 6 weeks in the general election campaign that they were not going to raise national insurance, income tax or
for
VAT
working people.
For working people. It's almost like he's in the room.
I know.
And,
it's good, isn't it? You're getting really good at it now.
And they did. And so to have that sort of thrust upon hard-working people who've had their taxes increased when the government told them that they weren't going to do that, to then try and say that this is a brilliant deal with India by allowing people to come into the country and not pay national insurance contributions, I think lots of people will be asking the question, well, how on earth is this a fair deal?
Exactly.
And what do we get out of it?
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of the 3 deals that Keir Starmer's been crowing about, the USA, India and the EU. And all 3 of them are frankly not worth the paper they're written on, because the USA deal, it seems to me, it requires us to pay a load of tariffs that we weren't paying, albeit that they're slightly less than they might have been. And all we've really got in return is a load of airplanes, which we paid billions and billions of pounds for. The deal with the EU is not a good deal, because we're being forced to pay them loads of money for sort of, more, what do they call it, closer alignment with them. So for food standards, we're going to pay them a load of money, but we're going to pay them a load of money for the defence issues. Apparently we learned this week that even if the European Union buys planes or buys arms from our arms and military manufacturers, we're going to have to pay part of the cost of that, even though it should be a net benefit to us. And here we are again with India, basically having to sort of, hold the baby while everybody else runs around, having a great time.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. I mean, these are the worst negotiators in the history of negotiating.
Yeah, exactly, and not to mention, the Chagos deal, which again, the deal of the decade, apparently. But you're right. As part of the EU, we become a rule taker without being able to have any say on those rules when it comes to dynamic alignment.
It is mad, isn't it? And speaking of which, immigration has been the big story this week, right? They've not mentioned it. Keir Starmer has not said really anything about the Epping situation. Last night there was another demonstration out in Epping, and the police, who previously said everybody's got the right to demonstrate, issued an order saying that nobody can come and join the demonstration unless they're actually local. So they completely changed their view on that. Meanwhile, we've got a story in The Sun saying a security firm exposes the latest scandal. Asylum seekers staying in taxpayer-funded hotels are swiping thousands of pounds of designer gear from top stores. Tipped off by a security firm, we saw organised gangs exit Liberties in London with alarm-dodging bags of luxury items. So not only are they coming here and staying here at our expense, but while they're here, they're committing massive crimes of shoplifting. Brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think, the front page of The Sun gone with their taking a liberty. I think they could have gone further and quoted Catherine Tate's infamous Gran or Nan character by, what a liberty. There's another word missing in there, but you can work
15
out what that
shops in 5 hours, then back to the Holiday Inn. They've nicked stuff from Ralph Lauren, Gucci, Louis Vuitton and Chanel. 3 thefts a minute. And these are the crime figures. When I talk to people like John Rental, who keeps telling me that actually crime's gone down over the course of time. Actually, it hasn't. Right, shoplifting has soared to record levels. Nearly 3 thefts every minute. Official figures reveal there was a 20% rise to 530,643 shoplifting crimes in a year to March, according to the Office for National Statistics. That's £1,400 a day. I mean, it's just incredible what sort of the state of our nation is. And this is why people are getting so fed up that they're thinking about leaving. And many people are leaving because there is a sense that this country is sort of on the brink of disaster, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And the reason why the crime figures might point towards a decline is because people don't report it anymore. Right. People are in fear of reporting it because they know that the police, if they turn up or they can't manage it, they won't do anything about it. And the brilliant investigation by The Sun here, where they've detailed groups of migrants coming from Wembley, the Holiday Inn in Wembley, where they line a particular bag, just an ordinary sort of shawl bag, with a tin foil, to avoid the detectors on the way out, that they share this bag, they go into Liberty, they're held by security, but security at the store can only hold people for about 4 hours.
For apparently 4 hours, yeah.
And then by the time the police come, they can't do anything about it. They've been released, and they turn up the next day, and the day after,
they just
the day
keep
after.
coming back.
And as bad as I feel for Liberty, flagship store in the heart of central London, how many more shops is this taking place in? I've got small and medium-sized shops in local supermarkets where people are flagrantly going in, lining their pockets and walking out, and the police do absolutely nothing about it.
Well, I mean, there are some shocking stats in the Mail. One theft a minute. They're talking again about the amount of shoplifting that's going on. But how about this, right? 10,000 thefts are being carried out each week, which is the highest level since records began in 2003. £2.2 billion lost each year in retailers' revenues, according to the British Retail Consortium. 151,220 muggings took place in the year to March, up from 131,000 in the previous 12 months. 1 in 8 women are victims of domestic abuse, sex assault or stalking in the same period. And 4.2 million is the number of fraud offences that have taken place, which is a 31% increase on the year before. It just feels like we're living in this lawless society where those of us who are paying taxes and doing the right thing are sort of in the minority. I mean, I don't know how often you travel on the tube, but I do it every day, and you go, why am I the only person sort of seemingly paying to travel? All these other people are seemingly deciding not to pay to travel. And people are just getting really sick to death of it.
Yeah, totally. And, you're absolutely right. In London, and I'm sure in every other major city around the country, people won't walk down the high street with their phone in their hand because of the fear that there'll be someone on an e-bike that all of a sudden approaches you, rides up to you, snatches your phone and drives off. And if it's not your phone, it's another bike that you've locked away because you go to work, you cycle to store it somewhere, and you come back and find that it's gone missing.
I was talking to a police officer the other day who said that the West End now is literally like the Wild West, and there are gangs of people. If they're not shoplifting, they're kind of spotting people who have got expensive watches, spotting people who have bought things that are maybe worth nicking, and as soon as they come out of a shop, having been spotted by these guys, they get followed, and they get their stuff stolen because they're being marked by these gangs.
I can tell you, I'm as a frequent visitor to the West End. I can tell you that
any particular part of it.
Popular areas.
Okay. I mean, I find myself in Oxford Street quite a lot. Because I go to a gym there, right? And literally, it is people. People are walking out of Selfridges with Selfridges bags, and you just think, do you know what? I wouldn't do that. And it's crazy to think that way, but I wouldn't come out of Selfridges with a Selfridges bag because you're literally a moving target.
Well, and coming down from Oxford Street all the way through Soho, Leicester Square, Piccadilly Circus, down to the Embankment, which is just borderline, obviously, where Whitehall begins. Go to any pub, any bar around there. You don't see a police officer for love nor money until about...
or a police car or anything like that.
Until it's far too late. But what you do see, and I have spoken to, doormen and people that work on the door, they are powerless because they can't operate outside of their the bar or restaurant that they're operating in. But they see after a particular time, let's say 11 o'clock, 12, maybe a bit later, depending on the day of the week. They will see the same people, the same faces, the same gangs hover around, knowing that as people come out, whether it's
they're just going to get rolled.
They're going, and the amount of phone thefts, bag snatches, purses, and you just see every now and again somebody running somewhere. And then somebody in distress because they've literally been mugged, and there is nobody around to stop it. And I find that there must be so much crime that's reported.
Why couldn't the police just put some patrols out so that they can, because it would stop? I mean, if there were police, people have said this very, very often to me, if there were police who were visible, who were, within sort of range, within sight, a lot of these gangs would just disappear and they'd go somewhere else. And, it's a terrible, terrible way to run a country.
And what does it say about what should be the greatest city in the world, I think? In every, establishment that you go in, where there's massive signs to say, keep your bags closed, don't leave your phone on the these are things that you wouldn't necessarily do anyway, but the idea that it's, thrust at you even before you walked in. It doesn't really signal having a good time if you know that at any moment you could be a potential victim of a mugging or a robbery.
I know, absolutely ridiculous.
But the person responsible, by the way, is the police and crime. You know, when there is problem in a particular part of whatever part of the country is, it should be your police and crime commissioner that sets the local plan. In London, it's obviously the mayor, who clearly hasn't got a grip on lots of things, but in particular in London, crime is up. It's through the roof, and he is the man responsible.
Exactly.
And no one is there to hold him to account.
Exactly right. Let's cheer ourselves up with a clip of Keir Starmer talking about the Indian trade deal.
It is a deal that will bring huge benefits to both of our countries, boosting wages, raising living standards, and putting more money in the pockets of working people. It is good for jobs, it is good for business, cutting tariffs and making trade cheaper, quicker and easier.
I mean, he's just talking absolute cobblers, isn't he? It doesn't mean a thing. How is he putting money in the pockets of working people by doing a trade deal with India, which allows them to bring people in to work in this country who don't have to pay the same level of tax as British people, who don't have to pay the same level of national insurance as British people? How is that helping Britain?
Yeah, and...
Sorry?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, you know, if you want to avoid what I would have thought the Prime Minister would want to avoid on so many levels is this accusation of two-tier Keir.
Two-tier Keir.
I mean, if I was him, that would do my absolute head in if I have to wake up to that every day, knowing that that is, you know, or there is yet another example of that label being left at my door.
Yeah.
And this is an example of it.
Right.
You know, if you're a UK company or if a UK business that you want to sort of set up, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're an innovator, you've got to pay more tax.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, you see the Prime Minister hailing a great, great big deal, when actually people want not just illegal immigration to come down, they want immigration in total to come down.
But also, you know, let's have
that.
some specifics. You know, if it's genuinely going to be helpful to British people and working people in this country, well, let's find out. Well, how is that working then? You know, is Modi going to give us such a great deal that we're going to suddenly have a new Indian factory producing steel, which is going to create a load of jobs? Let's hear it. But it's not. You know, it's all pie in the sky. It's all kind of, you know, in the never, never. Absolutely ridiculous. One from David, it says, "Morning, Mike. I'm a patriot of 74 years, but I'm starting to hate the UK now. If I was 20 years younger, both my wife and I would leave this country in a heartbeat. Please keep the truth coming. Great job." And Sean says, "Alison Pearson has the best idea for a name for Corbyn's new party. Hate Britain," says Sean from Bridlington. Yes, we will come back and we'll talk about the doctor's strike. Wes Streakey's done an interview with the Daily Mail. We'll talk about Ed Miliband and his latest screw-up. This, of course, is Morning Glory, 22 minutes past 6.
When me, you, people at home, the viewers and listeners here see on the TV the police escorting people who are fully masked up, who are actually giving lifts to people, what does this look like? It just looks so bad. I mean, trust and confidence in the police is at rock bottom. This nation used to have the best police force in the world. It was the envy of the world that people trusted the police. They saw them as decent and friendly, firm but fair. And now they see this. It's just appalling in my view.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 24 minutes past 6. I'm Mike Graham. Charlie Rowley's here with us as well. Lots and lots of stories on the front pages this morning. Front page of the Daily Mail, as I say, has got an interview with Wes Streeting, who last night took aim at the leaders of today's striking doctors, whose 5-day walkout is set to inflict untold misery on patients. It gets underway, we're told, around about 7 a.m. We'll be going down live to one of the picket lines, of course, which normally, this is what I've found in the past, normally are not filled with junior doctors at all. They're filled with sort of, apparatchiks and various kind of, labourites who quite like standing on picket lines, who've got nothing to do with being doctors. They're usually, like health workers of some kind. They put the scrubs on and they go, oh yes, we're standing here in solidarity. And when you say, what do you actually do? They go, oh, I work in the back office. I fill out forms, or, I send faxes to, banks and stuff like that.
Rent-a-mob.
Rent-a-mob, yeah, absolutely right. But it is extraordinary, isn't it, that the Labour government have found themselves in this place where basically they can't control the unions. The unions have taken over, as they always do.
Yeah, exactly. History repeating itself time and time again whenever a Labour government gets in. And you're absolutely right. One of the points of giving public sector pay increases, which is what this government, when it came into power, said that it was going to do for teachers, for doctors and public sector workers, was to stop the strikes. They said that the Tories had failed to engage with the unions, they'd failed to invest in these public services, and that's why they were giving people a pay rise, particularly in the public sector, to stop strikes, to get back to work, to get through that backlog of cases in the NHS, of treatments, of appointments and operations that need to take place, and will bring a halt to all of the disruption. Fast forward 12 months, we've got what are now called resident doctors, formerly known as junior doctors, but I've never met any group of people behaving in such a junior way over who received one of the biggest pay increases at the last budget. They have been paid.
They've been paid 22%. They've had 5% added, so they've effectively had 27%. There was a piece in the Mail last week that said, actually, over the last 8 years, they've had a 91% pay increase, and they're now asking for another 29%. It's outrageous.
And how tone deaf have you got to be? You don't have to be in politics. You don't have to be party political to recognise that when the country's gone through a bad economic period, whether that's because of COVID, debts that still need to be paid, whether that's just choking off growth, whatever the situation, and there are lots of problems there we could go and attack this government for, but the reality is there isn't the money there. But they've had the biggest pay rise out of anybody in the NHS. What does it say to your other NHS colleagues, by the way, who would be demanding a pay rise, but know that the responsibility lies for them to be at work to serve their patients, and if they suddenly walk out, they're putting patients at risk, patients that have already been at risk, maybe because they weren't getting the operations during COVID, because of lockdown and things like that.
Exactly right, and we'd love to actually hear from you today. We haven't really talked about the NHS for a while, so let's do that today. Let's get some of your stories in, because, people have been waiting for months and months and months, and this nonsense, this kind of ridiculous BS that is spouted by Keir Starmer and others in the Labour government about how, we've made 4 million new appointments in the NHS. It was 2 million. We promised 3 million, now it's 4 million, or is it 4.5 million? Every single time he sort of stands up in the House of Commons, it's grown by another 500,000. And it's like, people say to me, he might be making loads of appointments. I've had 4 appointments already for one thing that I'm supposed to be getting done. I still haven't actually had the appointment, and I still haven't actually been to see anyone, but they keep making appointments and then cancelling them. And if you keep doing that, then it's very easy to get to 4.5 million, isn't it? But, the NHS is dead and buried. It's not working. I know loads of people, and I'm one of them actually, who have just given up on it. If I am unfortunate enough to have to go and get something done, I just go privately, because I'm lucky enough to be able to afford it. But when I do it, I can see that there are lots of people going private who maybe can't afford it, but who are just saving up the money because they just can't get seen by a doctor.
And if and there'll be people this weekend over the next few days who feel if there really is a problem, they will have no choice but to go privately, because they can't go into the NHS because they won't be seen because of the strike that's taking place amongst.
Well, I know what's going to happen today. If I ask for people to tell me their stories, I will get one thing after another, but one person after another telling me, I've been waiting a year to be seen. I was supposed to be being seen like this week, and now they've cancelled it. I don't know when I'm going to be seen. I've got a really, really big problem. It's absolutely outrageous. The amount of money we give, £200 billion a year we give to the NHS, it's crap. Quite frankly.
Quite right. And it's not about health. this is nothing to do with health. This is nothing to do... I mean, there's lots of things. There are lots of problems in the health service. There's about problems with health and hospital, cleanliness and all the rest of it. Everybody's got a story about the NHS. There are brilliant stories about the NHS, but there are obviously people who have been let down by the NHS. So there's lots of things medically that have gone wrong, but this is nothing to do with medicine. This is nothing to do about with the opera. This is politics.
Yes.
And there are two people that I've just seen in the Mail who are leading the BNP who are absolutely responsible for it. One happens to be a very well-known, a consultant that we all know, 29 years old. Not had that long, probably, in terms of experience in politics or the NHS, but feels the need.
This is the Marxist, with the sort of German-sounding name, right?
Exactly. Who feels the need today and for the next 2 days.
Are you going to try and pronounce his name? Because I tried yesterday and I got it completely wrong.
No,
Can you give us have a go at it?
Neil Loldercrap or something like that. But it's he is clearly responsible.
His name is
Ross
Niewood, I think. Niewood?
Well, I wouldn't either.
No, no, indeed.
But the fact that
he looks like a guy that you wouldn't really enjoy talking to, doesn't he?
No.
He grew up in Truro in Cornwall. His doctor father, Francois, emigrated from South Africa to the UK as a medical student. His mother, Beatrice, who is also South African, was formerly behind a health and beauty salon where Francois administered an acupuncture and Chinese medicine regimen. And then the other woman is Dr. Melissa Sue Ryan, who previously suggested collective action which would cripple the NHS, is on the horizon. That's nice, isn't it? She's originally from New Zealand. So we've got a woman from New Zealand, a bloke basically who's got parents from South Africa, holding the country to ransom. And I'm sorry to be xenophobic about this, but I'd rather prefer it if our union leaders were more like, Len McCluskey and people who are actually British. Why are we being held to ransom by someone from a Kiwi from New Zealand and some bloke from South Africa?
Yeah, well, it's a fair point, but the reality is the people that fall in behind these two. So the people that are ultimately responsible for obviously these two, but anybody that feels the need that they deserve another 29% pay increase or whatever it is on the back where other NHS colleagues aren't getting that, where the NHS has had a fair share, the lion's share of the last budget, as far as I can see, to try and bring all these disruptions to an end, then decide today, at a weekend, going into the summer holidays where lots of things are schools and, as you say, Parliament's in recess and all, lots of other things going on, where people will need the NHS more than ever. These guys have decided, and people that fall in behind them, that they feel the need to strike and put people and patients at risk.
And put lives at risk, let's face it.
Put lives at risk.
Let's not pretend that that's not what's going on here, because there will be lives being put at risk. I think we might have the old Starmer boast about how well things are going in the NHS. Have a look.
Amongst the things, I could do a whole list, but I'm really proud that a year ago probably I was interviewed by you and I said we'd do 2 million extra appointments in the NHS in the first year of a Labour government. We've now done 3 million and waiting lists are coming down. There's a whole list of other things that I could probably go on about for a very, very long time.
That was when he was at the NATO conference somewhere in Canada, wasn't it? And since then, he's now boasted that it's gone to not just 3 million, but 4 million appointments, and 4.5, and they talk about it as if it's some great achievement. It's a bit like, I said this before, me saying, I'm going to plan to travel all over the place during this summer period, right? So I booked a load of tickets to go to Rio de Janeiro, Buenos Aires, Madrid, Hong Kong, Sydney, Moscow. I'm just going to fly everywhere, and then I just don't go anywhere. You can book loads of tickets, but it doesn't mean anything. You can book loads of appointments, doesn't mean anything. Nobody's being seen. There is nobody who is in my particular neck of the woods anyway, getting anywhere with the NHS.
Yeah, and a pattern seems to be emerging, because during that interview, that was the same weekend as when Keir Starmer, I think, quite brazenly said, "Oh well, no, I spoke to Donald Trump. He's not going to do anything.
He's definitely not going to bomb Iran.
Definitely not going to bomb Iran.
Definitely not.
Definitely not."
Yeah.
24 hours, 48 hours later, and we find ourselves in more. As someone is clearly saying to him, "Oh, Prime Minister, we've got now 4 million appointments. And crime is coming down because the statistics are showing us that crime. Oh, and by the way, the economy is picking up a bit."
He still keeps, and he keeps issuing these ridiculous reassurances, like, and business confidence at an all-time high. And it's not.
No.
It's literally not. I mean, we've got more in the Mail today. We've got more economists saying basically that, the tax raids that are being made by Rachel Reeves in the City are ruining everything. Employers are stepping up the pace of job cuts as Labour's national insurance raid delivers sustained damage, according to a report from the Purchasing Managers Index, the latest grim indictment of Labour's record, even as Chancellor Rachel Reeves continues to insist she's making Britain better off. They can't keep saying we're making Britain better off when they're killing it. Yep. They're literally killing the economy. Complete and utter, idiots.
But that,
sorry.
No, but that sentiment is exactly what people across the country are feeling, because the public won't be taken for fools. They will hear this stuff that's coming from government and they don't believe it. A, because it's not true.
Right.
And they don't believe it because they don't feel it, they don't see it, and they know it's a load of old.
And they know it's a load of old compliments. And yesterday, right, we got the even more ridiculous news. We'll maybe explore this a bit more. That apparently Rachel Reeves is looking for new economic advisors. And I'm thinking, it's a bit bloody late, darling. Well, you've really ruined the economy. It's literally hanging by a thread, and about to just self-destruct. And she's going, well, maybe I'll get some people who know what they're doing. Really?
Yeah, well, I think...
Maybe you should have thought of that like a year ago.
Yeah, well, exactly. The only person that should be looking for a new economic advisor, brackets the Chancellor, is the Prime Minister.
I know.
Because Rachel Reeves, I can't see how she... But just if you just take a step back, as you say, what's happened in the last year since you've had a Labour government? You've had the winter fuel taken away. Your inheritance tax if you're a farm, where you've now gone bust.
We've seen the farmers closing a record rate, right? More than 6,000 agricultural, forestry and fishing businesses shut in 1 year. 6,000.
And these are people who, just like these junior doctors, resident doctors will say that they do such an important work and they keep people. It's like, well, it's farmers that keep food on the table, that keep us all fed.
Right.
They are equally as important, I think, as lots of other people in the country that aren't striking, that will obviously protest, take their protests to London, as they should. But, your winter fuel's been taken away, your inheritance tax on the farmers has gone up, and therefore farms are going bust. We've got an economy that's choked off because your taxes have gone up. They'll go up again in the autumn. All the while, you see an increase in illegal immigration, where migrants are able to get £50 a week, free accommodation. They get their dental and dentist and doctor's appointments as quick as a flash, free accommodation. All the while, Sir Keir Starmer has done a terrible deal with the Chagos Islands at the expense of UK taxpayers. We give more money to now Europe when we're all takers, reneging on Brexit.
It sounded like me.
But people will be asking themselves, but all the while, the government are sort of, tin-eared, fingers in their ears, saying,
well, look, we've got a great deal going with India, or France, or the EU. Let's get a voice note from James.
Good morning, Mike. Now, do you think, Mike, this is all one big nightmare at the moment, or we're going to wake up on Monday morning and everything's going to be better and back to some form of normality, where we actually have a Prime Minister that cares about British people and actually cares about the country instead of the world stage? Oh, you absolute plank. He doesn't give a stuff about us. Anyway, Mike, have a lovely weekend. Looking forward to Plank of the Week again. Superb show. Cheers, Mike.
James, thank you very much indeed. Yeah, Plank of the Week tonight at 7 o'clock. We'll play a little clip from it coming up. This from Peter in Suffolk. He says, morning, Mike and Charlie. I told you a while ago about my wife's 12:15 a.m. appointment, which wasn't a real appointment. She's still waiting to be put on the waiting list for a hip replacement. We couldn't wait any longer, so we ended up paying £18,000 to go private. This is the thing. Yeah, I remember that he said this before, Peter in Suffolk. His wife was given an appointment for 12:15 a.m, which is like 1:45 in the morning, which clearly was never going to happen. Unbelievable. Maggie in London says, if Two-Tier wanted to help put money in the pockets of hard-working people, he and this useless cabinet would bloody resign and let a grown-up do the job. Have a good weekend, MG. Maggie, thank you very much indeed. Morning, Mike and Charlie. Talking of Ed Miliband, any updates on exactly what Jurgen is up to with GB Energy? I'm still waiting for my bills to be reduced, says Barry in North Yorkshire. Well, that's another thing that's not happening. Ed Miliband keeps promising that the bills are going to keep going down, and they just keep going up. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Anyway, listen, we'll try and stay sane. It's 6:38. I'm going off for a lie down. I'll be back after this.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker. On your smart TV. And on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's Mike Graham here. I'm with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. It's 6:40. Charlie Rowley's here as well. As opposed to considering the UK to be the 51st state of the United States, it's more likely will become the 29th state of India, says Kim, from being a global player to a cosplayer. I know. I mean, this is the thing. You know, Keir Starmer keeps inviting these foreign leaders into Downing Street and doing deals with them, which are supposedly going to be, you know, helpful to this country, talking about how, this is going to be good for the economy. And there's no evidence, really, of any reason why any of these deals that he's doing are going to be any good for us at all. And the only good thing, he's hugging him as well. What's wrong with... Why is he hugging everybody? You know, every bloke he meets, he hugs. Why can't he just shake hands with them? You know?
Yes.
Just ridiculous. Anyway, what's wrong with charging illegal migrants for the expenses incurred, says John in Blackpool. They seem to have enough to pay the smugglers thousands. They would have a debt to pay back in the future. Surely that has to be a deterrent. Well, this is the thing. I mean, the latest migrant story, and this is the other thing that we were talking about, Charlie, is that, you know, the country is kind of, you know, now completely and utterly obsessed with the migrant story, not least because in every sort of town and city in this country there's a migrant hotel that people are seeing every single day. They walk past it, they see the sort of, you know, feckless characters hanging around. They know that it's bad for the environment of the town that they live in. They know that crime has gone up as a result. The Sun have got this story this morning where an organised crime gang who are officially migrants living in a hotel in North London are getting up every morning, you know, going down to the West End with bags which are empty and filling those bags with stuff that they've nicked from any particular, you know, high street shop in Oxford Street. And it could be Gucci, it could be Prada, it could be John Lewis, it could be Liberties. And they're literally just doing what they like at will, not worried about getting arrested. It's extraordinary, isn't it?
The brazen brass neck of it all, because these people know that they're not going to get caught. Right. And there's nothing that one can do about it. You know, if they are in the system, if they're being processed, in inverted commas, because they've applied for asylum as they've arrived here illegally, they know that they can't be deported. Right. They know, actually, the reason why they come to the UK, and so many want to come to the UK, is because we're a soft touch. Yeah. There's no deterrent. That got scrapped. Whatever you think about Rwanda, we never really saw that get going, but this government decided to scrap it on day one of coming in, so there's no deterrent. They know that you can come here. They know that you get your £50 a week. They know that you get the healthcare. They know that you get the accommodation in up to 4 or 5-star hotels, and you have the ability to go and work, whether it's as a delivery driver somewhere, or whether it's in a nail bar, whether it's in a pizza, whatever. Or you can earn a quick buck on the side.
Drug gang or something like that.
And all the while, you get a government card with your 50 quid, which you can go and gamble.
This was a story that we got yesterday. 80,000 of these cards are given out, right? Which means that it's something like £4 million plus a week. Which is being spent by these illegal migrants on, you know, sort of, you know, things that they think they might like. You know, why don't you pick up a couple of, you know, spray cans of Lynx deodorant, or maybe you could go and pop down to the local Sainsbury's and get yourself, you know, a couple of packets of crisps. It's just ridiculous. It's incredible. And ordinary people who are having to think about what they can spend money on this month because they might not have enough, and because they're going to get taxed more, and because they're not sure what's going to happen, you know, coming up in the next few weeks, you know, are sitting there going, why are we being taken for a very long ride? Why the hell are we paying tax? Why are we bothering to work? That's the message I get every day.
And this goes to the heart of it, because the people making the decisions and the people that are part of that policy process, so people sitting in the Home Office, basically, so whoever came up with the idea that when somebody comes to the country, whether they're being processed, they need a bit of money, so here we'll give you a card, basically a credit card or a debit card that's topped up, so you can go and spend it. Nobody...
It's ridiculous.
But nobody during that process, because they're probably quite well off civil servants, that they don't really... But this doesn't bother them. They're not in an area where they're going to have a migrant hotel put on their doorstep.
This thing alone is costing the country $200+ million a year.
Exactly, but there's nobody sitting there thinking we need to make sure that those cards can't be used for gambling, or that they can't be used outside of what is.
Yeah, but how about they shouldn't be used at all? How about they shouldn't even have them? You know, there's a story in the Sun saying a Labour councillor sparked fury after asylum seekers are given half-price e-bike rides. This is Wandsworth Council, which used to be a Tory council actually in south-west London, has offered illegal migrants a 50% discount with bike hire companies Lime, Forest and Voil. The Sun has revealed some asylum seekers are using the bikes to work illegally as delivery drivers. Yeah. I mean, have people gone insane in this country? Why the hell are they giving these people everything for nothing?
And that's a perfect example where the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing, because all the while Wandsworth Council, I think you're right, it's a Labour council now, have given this 50% discount on line bikes so people can go around doing a jolly, whatever they like. On the other hand, only now, the Home Office has decided to share the hotel accommodation that's being used to house migrants with people like Deliveroo, Just Eat and Uber Eats, for example, to make sure that they can stop recruiting these drivers. So all the while, the Home Office has now just decided, come round to the decision, that they're going to share that information to prevent illegal migrants being able to work. But yet, Wandsworth Council are giving them the ability to work at riding around on a bike for even cheaper than the everyday taxpayer.
I know.
Half price.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure there was a story we did, and we probably did this some months ago, that Transport for London, TfL, which is run, of course, by Sadiq Khan, actually gives migrants free passes to travel on the tube. Because, of course, they need to be able to, go and try and do interviews for jobs and all the rest of it. And, they struggle with having any income at all. So let's just give them free travel. Meanwhile, everybody else is paying. It's absolutely bloody ridiculous.
And all the while, if you dare criticise it or talk down, anything that we're talking about, we're branded part of the far-right bandwagon. That's the Prime Minister's own words. If ever you've got an issue or if you've got a concern about people that come into this country illegally, and if you dare criticise that they're being put up in hotels, 4-star hotels, if you dare criticise all the benefits that they get, you are part of a far-right bandwagon. That is the UK Prime Minister talking to me and you, that's the Prime Minister talking to your listeners and viewers, because we are clearly racist, bigots, and fruitcakes and all the rest of it. That is the way the conversation has been for far too long, and that's why we're seeing such a shift in the political...
well, people are really just fed up to the back teeth. Wayne says this: it feels like Starmer cares nothing for the British people. Everything he does is against the British people. And this from Nicola in Norfolk. Morning, Mike. Once again, Starmer is ignoring the concerns of ordinary people in this country by retreating to his favourite place, hobnobbing with a world leader, pronouncing it's yet another historic day by announcing a smoke and mirrors deal where all the benefits are for the other country and there is zero benefit for us. Does he think we're so stupid that we don't realise it? And that's what people are saying. I mean, Nicola from Norfolk speaks for the nation, because that's how everybody feels. It's ridiculous. Totally bloody ridiculous.
And the public are seeing through it. They're not stupid. The public are never wrong. Even when politicians and political commentators can get it wrong, at times. But the public don't, and that's why, as I say, there's this political shift now where people are looking for alternatives. They're looking to reform. That's why reform aired in the polls. That's why Farage has been previously seen as a pariah of politics to now the man that's favourite to become the next Prime Minister. From pariah to Prime Minister. I think that would be quite something.
Well, he was never a pariah on this station. He's only a pariah in Westminster because they don't understand how people actually feel and what people actually want. That's the problem. It is Friday, so we're going to have a few gaffes to play for you. Here's one from Ian Collins.
Sorry, this is like a Turkish brothel in here. What's going on?
It's unbelievable, isn't it? Look,
Can I just point out to the dear listener that and you look like you've gone 12 rounds, the mic tight. Is that unit working?
No.
The air condition is not working.
It came in only about half an hour ago. An actual unit was wheeled in. While but this is the kind of thing that happens.
Air conditioning has
so they wheeled in a unit and it started to work a bit and then kind of stopped. But Vanessa in makeup has lent us this little fan. One of those things that people are carrying around with them.
So
you can't have it on full
Jody,
pelt.
can you get the engineers to say that air conditioning works? Because I'm not working if it's this up. I'm not doing it. I can start off.
It's like a wind tunnel in here.
That fan's not big enough.
Hello?
Ladies and gentlemen,
just about
it's going to be a sweaty drive time. Nice.
Oh, it's got another setting.
What have
How
you
many
been
settings can a one fan
Give it to me.
have?
Come on here. What have you been talking about then?
We've been talking about Nigel Farage. We've been talking about civil disobedience. We've been talking about comedy with trigger warnings.
Glad I haven't got pants on. What?
Yeah, comedy with trigger warnings.
Can you get the engineering? Because I'm not doing this show unless the air conditioning... This is ridiculous. My armpits are like the Niagara Falls.
These two men are supposed to be professional broadcasters. I'd like to say that I think they should both be fired as a result of that particular exchange. Absolutely ridiculous. Ridiculous. Let's get a voice note from Liam.
Morning, Mike. Liam from Kent. So on the NHS, literally very recently, unfortunately, my partner had a miscarriage. We've been trying for about 10 years. She had some troubles early on. She needed, she's got B12 deficiency. She needed a certain injection to help her out. And basically, because she hadn't had a miscarriage before, the NHS just turned us away. And she basically had to sit home and suffer until it had all gone. I mean, I work hard. We both work hard. She's a care worker. And I drive for a living, so I leave at 2 in the morning. She leaves at 6 in the morning. We work blooming hard, and we were just basically thrown to the side. But anyway, have a great show, Mike. See you later.
Liam, thanks very much indeed. A very good point that you make, that lots of people make as well, that, you know, you work hard, you pay your taxes. When you do need some help from the NHS, you don't get it because they are completely and utterly overwhelmed, and not least because they're helping loads of people for nothing. People who come into this country who do not pay taxes, who do not actually contribute anything to the exchequer, and who basically just take the mickey out of us, the rest of us, who are, you know, in need of help. It's absolutely shocking. Shocking what's going on. We'll talk some more about Wandsworth Borough Council offering 50% off e-bike rentals to asylum seekers. There's lots of other councils that are doing similar things and making it easier for asylum seekers to get things for free. Absolutely incredible. And there's the migrant ticket there. 46,908 have come since Starmer got into power in July of last year. This is Morning Glory. Charlie Rowley's back after this with me. This is Talk.
Of course, what happened in 1997 or thereabouts was Tony Blair said education, education, education. And some smart and ambitious police officers thought, we'll have a bit of this. And off they went to university to get their degrees. And they came back with their heads brainwashed with pseudo-intellectual Marxist claptrap. And so the police service we have today is unrecognisable from the policing of my era.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's me and Charlie Rowley right here with you. It's 6:54. We're going to take a quick detour over to the United States of America, because one of the stories that broke late yesterday afternoon was the sad death of Hulk Hogan, a man, a sort of legend of wrestling, but also not just of wrestling, of American culture, really. He died at the age of 71. Let's remind ourselves of what Hulk Hogan was famous for, not just wrestling, but here he is at the Republican convention last year.
But what happened last week when they took a shot at my hero and they tried to kill the next President of the United States. Enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania make America great again.
Hulk Hogan, my goodness me. Let's talk to Conrad Cushman, host of the Everything Pro Wrestling podcast. Conrad, very good morning to you.
Hey, good morning, Mike. Thank you for having me on.
Good to see you. Hulk Hogan, a larger-than-life figure, an amazing character. He will be sadly missed, won't he?
I do think a lot of the wrestling fan base have a different appreciation for Hulk Hogan, depending on what time frame we are talking about Hulk Hogan and what it means. I think for what he had contributed to the world of pro wrestling, it meant a lot to building up wrestling, especially in the United States, but it took it global over the time frame of the 80s, and even into the 90s. He found a way to revolutionize it, going to WCW, working in WWF. So a lot of people have that relationship with Hulk Hogan, and the people that love him are going to love him, and there's going to be reasons why people definitely don't like him as well.
Right.
So,
well, I guess that's the whole point, isn't it? I mean, wrestling is one of those weird sports, which is, everybody kind of knows it's a game, but it's not really a game. And he was the ultimate kind of protagonist of it, wasn't he?
Yeah, the bumps are real. If you know wrestling, Hulk Hogan's finisher was a leg drop. A lot of reasons why he had back problems, neck problems, is falling into a ring is not fun for people to do every single day of your wrestling.
We're out of time. Host of the Everything Pro Wrestling podcast. He was a great character, Hulk Hogan, wasn't he? Charlie Rowley. I mean, I'm not a massive wrestling fan, but you sort of everybody knows who Hulk Hogan is.
Your Party is currently not what it's called, but currently what Jeremy
He said
Corbyn
it was called Your Party. She then came out and said, no, that's not what it's called.
Yes.
They've had more arguments in the first sort of 2 weeks of their inception than anything else. Anyway, Charlie, listen, thanks very much for joining us this morning. It's beautiful out there. Go and enjoy the rest of the day, if you can manage to do so without crying into your breakfast because of the state of the nation. Coming up, we're going to be speaking to Benedict Spence. We're going to be finding out exactly what he's got to say about the big weekend coming up. There's going to be massive traffic problems, apparently. There's going to be terrible travel problems because it is the final weekend of July. Lots of music festivals going on as well. 0344 499 1000. We'll talk to you after this.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yay!
8722, start your message with the word talk. Who would you send to space and why?
The person I would love to send to space would be Mr. Keir Starmer. And then I would tell the Galactic Empire that he was part of the Rebel Alliance and let them blow him away with the Death Star. No Brits was involved, no fingers could be pointed.
You carry on taking the medication, George. Yes, I'd send all the Labour government to space with a one-way ticket and throw in the SNP for being useless. They're all a bunch of... Oh, all right, fair enough.
One person, quite frankly, I think needs to go to space in a one-way journey is Jeremy Kyle. He goes on about his age one more time, how he's 60 this year, he was 59 last year, repetitively over the course of the weeks and months. We have to hear him, I'm 60 this year, I'm 60 this year.
Richard Tice, did you put that cheeky bugger up to that?
I'm hoping he's going to send me the invoice because that was absolutely brilliant.
Which MP would you send to space?
Although I'll get in terrible trouble if I answer that. But it's fair to say there's quite a long list.
The sad thing is about sending people into space on a one-way ticket is I don't think that we've built a spaceship big enough to take the lunatics off this planet. I mean, from the net zero loonies to the transgender loonies to the racists to the terrorists, there is just so many to the wokerati. We need some big spaceships.
Big spaceships.
Good evening. I never know how you're going to start this conversation, Jeremy.
Katy Perry went to space today, OK? Who would you send... I'd love her to say what I wanted to, but I'd never disrespect her. Who would you send to space who could never come back? Please,
Well, I'd be happy to send Ed Miliband to space, I think.
Oh, that is an outrageous question, so I'm not even going to answer that question.
Sam Matterface, do you get the job, yeah? Come on.
No, Sam Matterface, I tell you what, there's no.
I think David Lammy would be the person I'd want to send up in space and never come back again.
Yeah, the problem is how much would the bill be for him to munch through whatever food on the way there?
Hey, it worked.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, coming up to 3 minutes past 7, and the sun is up, ladies and gentlemen, and this is now the beginning of the doctor's strike. We are now fully in day one of a 5-day strike, which is going to cost the country £87 million. It's going to cost the NHS £87 million. It's going to mean that 250,000 appointments and procedures are going to be missed. People are going to die, people are going to get sicker, people are going to have a terrible, terrible time over the next 5 days, thanks to the junior doctors and their ridiculously selfish attitude that they think that they know best, and they think that they should get another 29% of a pay rise on top of what they had last year, which was 27%. You know, nobody in their right mind thinks that they are doing anything right. Wes Streeting on the front page of the Daily Mail this morning, basically giving an interview to them saying, I won't cave in to these militant doctors, because that's what they are. They're not real doctors, they're militants, right? But they're so militant that they can't even be bothered to turn up on a picket line. We've got people all over the place trying to check out when the picket lines are going up. The strike is on as of 7 o'clock, so about 5 minutes ago was when they started. But there is a picket line normally outside of Guy's Hospital right here in London, not far away from where we are here at the office. So far, nobody has turned up to even actually go onto a picket line. So that's how dedicated these bozos are. They're probably still lying in bed thinking about how they're going to enjoy their next summer holiday in the south of France. 0344 499 1000 is the number. We're also going to talk this morning about the migrant crisis, because the crisis continues. The Sun front page talks about migrants taking a liberty. They've discovered that there's a gang of shoplifters who have been put up in a Holiday Inn in North London at taxpayers' expense, who wake up every single morning, go out into the West End and just steal stuff for a living, and they don't get caught, because at the end of the day, even if they do get stopped, even if they do get held, they can't be arrested by the police because they have no fixed abode, they have no identity, they have no papers with them, so nobody knows who they are. So apparently they cannot be put through the charging process. So all that can happen to them is they get held for about 4 hours in the shop, and then they get let go. And meanwhile, their cohorts and their colleagues and their friends and the people in the family of shoplifting continue to run around just stealing stuff. It's absolutely extraordinary. 0344 499 1000. The Telegraph has got a really, really sad story as well, which says that farms are closing at a record rate after the government's raid on the inheritance tax scenario. More than 6,000 agricultural, forestry and fishing businesses have shut in 1 year since the Labour government have got in. It is absolutely appalling. It's absolutely shocking. And I, for one, am sick to death of this bleeding, useless government. 0344 499 1000 is the number. This, of course, is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Good morning, says Warwick from Devon. Great start to your show, Mike, as usual. No doubt Stalin had a word with Modi about the amount of crap that India pumps into the atmosphere, whilst we are going bankrupt with millipedes lunacy on net zero. Yeah, very good point. Here's one from Gerald, who says, a new name for Jeremy Corbyn's party, net zero. Yeah, that's not bad. And Hugh from Basingstoke says, I'm astonished to see so many police out in Epping. Hundreds, 1,000 plus. And then you wonder why police fail to attend shops where thefts have been reported. No wonder people are leaving Britain. says Hugh. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about what went on in Epping last night, because it looks as though now the Epping Council, who met last night after there was a demonstration by more of the mothers of Epping and more of the children of Epping, the council have decided they're going to kick out the migrants from the Bell Hotel. Where they're going to go is anybody's guess. We don't know whether the council have got the power to do that, but basically, unilaterally, the women of Epping decided to march on the council last night, even though they weren't really supposed to, and they said, we're not taking it anymore. So we're going to speak to somebody from that particular demonstration last night a little bit later on in the show, and we're going to talk to Benedict Spence. Just before we talk to Benedict, let's cross live to the junior doctors' picket line outside of Guy's Hospital and see what's going on. Well, there we are. Looks like nothing is going on. Looks like nobody is there. That's, of course, the place where normally the picket line is. Last time there was a strike which went on for almost a year under the Tories. I think it was from August of sort of 2023 all the way through to July of 2024. There were people there pretty much every single day. Today, on the big day that the strike begins, they can't be bothered. Isn't that funny? Benedict Spence is here. Benedict, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm all right, but becoming more and more kind of restless about the terrible state of this government, the terrible state of this country. I mean, that kind of sums it up. You know, we've got this massive junior doctor strike going on, 5 days of carnage, chaos, 250,000 appointments being smashed to death, and nobody is going to be able to see a doctor. People are going to die, and they can't even be bothered to run a proper picket line.
Yeah, it's a proper sort of millennial strike, actually, isn't it? Nobody can actually be bothered to get out of bed. Yeah. It's not so much that people are organised or anything like that. They haven't got the excess energy to dispense on protesting or anything like that. They're just watching Netflix. If they can afford Netflix, because, you know, times are tough, as we all know. I mean, honestly, it's... The trouble with this is, you know, we could lambast the doctors all day and it would be fun. But the problem is this isn't going away. And this is partly the fault of successive governments. I mean, to be fair, they were underpaid for a long time. They have had a huge, massive pay rise subsequently, which most other people haven't had. The problem is, being a doctor is a very highly rated, a highly prized profession, and not just in the UK, but all around the world. What a lot of these doctors do is that they see their colleagues moving to places like Canada and Australia, where they do get significantly higher pay than they do here, and you can't hide that from them, is the fact. And there's no way of saying to people, well, the entirety of this country is suffering, and therefore you should perhaps just put up a little bit with, what was it, your 29% pay rise? Maybe you should just lump it for a little bit, whilst the rest of us all do as well. There's no telling these people, because they will say, but I could move anywhere in the world to do this sort of thing. And, you know, this is a problem of the government's making, ultimately, as irritating as it is that doctors are behaving this way.
Yeah, true. But I mean, the thing is, the public, as of now, have completely lost faith in the government and have completely lost faith in the doctors. You know, last time they went on strike, which went on for quite a long time, went on for pretty much nearly a year, from sort of the summer of 23 all the way through to the July of 24. And, you know, you could tell that they just wanted to get rid of the Tory government and they were trying to bring them down, and they managed to do that by hook or by crook. But then... you know, the government and the public actually had some sympathy with them, and they thought, all right, you know, maybe you do need some better conditions, maybe you do need some more money. But now, every single poll that you see says that the public does not support this strike, and the public will not even take into account that they're somehow hard done by. And what the government have said now is that they're going to continue to run the A&E operation that they run. They're going to continue to hopefully keep up as many appointments as they can, and they're just going to try and defy these doctors. But somehow it's got to end at some point, isn't it?
It does, but it's ironic, really, because it's the NHS itself, in many ways, this great monolith, and the support for it over the years that has perhaps meant that doctors' pay is a lot less competitive than it might otherwise be. If you have this sort of giant edifice that's very difficult to work with, and everybody sort of gets the same as part of it. And as everybody knows, for a very long time, the public, or the perception was that the public blindly supported the NHS in whatever incarnation it was in, and wouldn't countenance any kind of reform to it. And a lot of doctors did as well. They were very pro not reforming the NHS, not privatising it. And now we see the sort of the fruits of that endeavour, which is doctors being massively underpaid as a result. So there is an irony to this, which is that as public sympathy begins to dissipate, also, I think public sympathy towards the NHS in general is beginning to change, and attitudes around things like reforming it, I think, are probably becoming a lot more common than they once were. You're not going to get people stood on doorsteps banging pots and pans for it this time around. I think people are thoroughly fed up.
No, you're absolutely right. And people, because people are struggling in their own right. You know, they're watching, and this has been a big week for this, and we'll talk about it, I'm sure, for the next week or two to come. This has been a massive week, hasn't it, for the sort of a migrant conversation, where people are beginning to realise how ridiculous it is, how much free stuff that these people get. You know, yesterday we had the story that the Daily Mail broke, that there's thousands and thousands of people going to betting shops using these cards that they're given. They get given £50 a week expenditure cards, and they're just living high and hog. And people are going, hang on a minute, you know, I can't afford to go betting, I can't afford to go to casinos, I can't afford to take my family on holiday this year because we haven't really got enough money. Taxes are going up. I mean, you know, I'm going to be, as many people are, at the end of this month, paying a bucket load of money to the HMRC Revenue Department of this country because apparently I need to be taxed and I need to, you know, supply money. And I just feel really, for some reason, unlike any other year, I mean, nobody likes paying taxes, but this year particularly, I'm thinking, what am I doing? Why am I paying tax so that they can give this free money to bloody migrants?
I think your attitude is shared by millions of people in this country now. I mean, you know, people never, as you say, people never like paying tax at the best of times, but they can see the government effectively taking their money and setting fire to it. And, you know, when you add it to all the other things that the government is doing and the sheer amount of interest now that we're paying on our national debt, which again is being paid for by our taxes because we are borrowing so much money in order to pay for things like repatriating people from Afghanistan on secret military flights for them to get accommodation and to then just do things like this. It is infuriating, absolutely infuriating. And I mean, the thing about the betting shops, you know, honestly, the idea that you would take money that has been provided for you by the public for you to be able to live on, and we're always told, aren't we, how little money actually there is for these people, and that they don't get supported, and that, if anything, they possibly need more money. And then you find that this is how it's being used, and no doubt then, having done that, they will turn around and complain, well, we're not given enough money at all. And then, of course, we've got the story about the shoplifting that's come out today on the front of the Sun.
Yeah.
And you just think, honestly, like the whole point of we thought when you go to someone else's country, be it to live because you're going to work there or because you're a refugee, is that you are grateful and you adhere to the cultural norms of that country. Please, when is that going to start happening? When are we going to see the gratitude from these people? When are we going to see the people who we're told want to be British, love this country for all that it offers? We see that exactly.
Yeah, I know, because it appears that they're all just coming here to take the mickey out of us. It really is quite depressing. But I'll tell you what, I've got, because it's Friday and we're trying to try and cheer people up, I've got a little bit of footage to show you, Benedict, which I'm sure is going to warm the cockles of your heart, if nothing else. This is American Eagle and their latest advert. You know, we've been suffering under the yoke of woke for so long. This is Sydney Sweeney. Acting like a sort of woman from the 1970s, wearing a relatively low-cut top, wearing some fairly tight jeans, getting into a American muscle car, I think it's a Ford Mustang, and driving it off at high speed, screeching the brakes, screeching the tyres, and generally just being a woman. I think it's brilliant.
I mean, it's taken us how many years and how many millions and billions of dollars from advertising companies that have done the whole thing of having one. Yeah, we've had the whole sort of woke thing of going, well, let's try having, I don't know, one-legged people, let's try having overweight people, let's try having trans people with nose rings and no hair and all that sort of thing. And let's try and look at how diverse it is. And then finally a company's gone, guys, do you know what works? Just putting a really, really gorgeous actress in some tight-fitting clothes and the name of your product. It actually works really well. Maybe we should try that. I think we might actually, I don't want to say this is the watershed moment or anything like this, but I have seen a lot of very positive reactions to this advert.
Yeah.
I think maybe this is the beginnings of the post-woke moment where actually people remember it's nice to have things that are aesthetically pleasing, that don't bully you, that don't try and gaslight you into thinking you should like things that are appalling. This is a really straightforward advert and everybody loves it.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's a return to just normality. You know, we've lived, and I think we're all to blame in a way because we've all sort of allowed it to happen. You know, and you and I have spoken about it for years, but we've sort of never said, no, don't do that, enough of that rubbish, you know, but now people are beginning to say that, and you're starting to see, you know, the likes of banks now going, you know what, we're going to get rid of our diversity coordinator, we're going to get rid of all of these ridiculous rules that we've been putting ourselves under so that we have to sort of live in fairness with everybody, and we're just going to actually run the business like a business and try and make money. And that's really where we are now, and I think it's the one thing that kind of gives me hope for the future, that we're kind of moving out of this woke period, despite the fact that the government is useless, despite the fact that, you know, we haven't got any money, despite the fact that, you know, Keir Starmer keeps trying to gaslight us. You know, if we can get the sort of the business of business back to doing what it does best, perhaps we've got some hope.
I think it reached this moment I think it's a sign of actually how tolerant a society we are, how good a society we are, that we actually allowed it to get to this point. Whenever people try and turn around and say, you know, white culture, Western culture is racist and it's sexist and this, that and the other, remember how far we let them get before we said, do you know what, we've had enough. And ultimately, it's the sort of the juxtaposition of two things, I think. In the United States, not just here, it was the final backlash and pushback against mass migration and illegal migration that actually made people go, do you know what, we've had enough, this is just ridiculous. And on the other side, I think it was finally the straw that broke the camel's back was the trans movement and the idea that men can be women with all their sort of tackle and everything out, and that they should be allowed to go into women's changing rooms and you know, undress in front of small children, all that sort of thing. It was that moment that we all said, do you know what, we've had enough of this, and we're going to start rolling all of this back. And I think you're right. I think over the next couple of years, we're going to see a return to these sorts of adverts, this sort of culture, and ultimately being able to speak a little bit more freely without being told you're a bigot at the end of.
Yeah, absolutely right. Because the alternative method has just failed completely. Benedict, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Benedict Spence there, political commentator there, talking about how the return of sexy is actually going to be a good thing, not just for the country, but for the world. Let's face it. This from Paul in Hartlepool. He says, just heard what you're discussing about Soho and the surrounding area. No police presence at all, but for a peaceful protest in Epping, there must have been 60 officers lining the area. Absolutely pathetic. What is going on? It makes my blood boil. Great show. I watch it every day. And David says this, good morning. I hope you're both well. Great show. The UK has lost its moral, social and physical sense of pride and integrity. I was brought up to respect the rule of law, pay your way and give more than you take. Having now served 26 years in the armed forces, I feel cheated and more concerning is how worried I am for my young family. Keep up the good work. Patriotism isn't dead. God save the King. Well, listen, thank you very much indeed for that, David. Let's get a voice note from Sue.
Morning, Mike. Sue from Farnham here. The NHS, a friend of mine had to have an operation. She had to wait 6 months on the NHS. So she thought, no, I'm going private. She went private and she saw within 2 weeks exactly the same doctor from the NHS. So they do all right on the side, don't they?
This is so true, and this is what's going to happen over the course of the next 5 days. An awful lot of these doctors who are on strike are going to be working in the private sector. They're going to be doing, you know, little clinical jobs, little things that make them extra money. Meanwhile, the consultants who are going to be supposedly covering for them are asking for £6,000 just to be on call over the course of this weekend. So in order to be on call for Friday, Saturday and Sunday, £6,000 for that. They don't even have to do anything, don't even have to move, might not have to do any work whatsoever, might be able to just continue to play golf on the golf course. £6,000 for literally 2 days' work. Unbelievable. 7:20.
Over the years, what has been revealed about Corbyn and his kind, and it's at this point, it's kind of sad. I mean, I almost feel like someone needs to just put their arm around him and say, Jeremy, it's, you know, it's done. It is so over. And I think this, I mean, I've been a few Tory people that I speak to, you know, oh, this can be quite helpful in, you know, splitting the Labour Party.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:23, almost 7:24 actually. Lots going on today. It's a beautiful day out there and it's going to be a lovely weekend. Some people going off to festivals. It's going to be chaotic apparently on the roads. There's going to be a lot of travel chaos in the air. We're going to speak to Simon Calder, our favourite man, with his eye on everything to do with travel a little bit later on. This from Darryl, who says, I think the first job of any government is the safety, protection and well-being of its own people from all who seek to harm us. This government under Keir Starmer has failed in that objective. Successive governments have stuck the boot into the head of British men and women for years, keeping us down in favour of the foreign visitors. Now we have had enough. Yeah, I think we have. I think there's definitely a sense in this country that people are fed up to the back teeth of being taken for granted, of paying taxes into a system which seems to only favour those who put nothing in. And whether they're homegrown members of the public who don't seem to be able to keep a job or get a job or work in any way, shape or form or contribute to society, or whether it's people coming in to this country from elsewhere who are handed, you know, credit cards, who are handed free hotel rooms, who are handed, you know, the ability to go to football matches, the ability to go to circuses, the ability to be taken around the place and being treated like royalty, quite frankly. And the ordinary good tax-paying people, hard-working people of this country have had enough. Let's talk to Harriet Baldwin MP, Shadow Business Minister. Harriet, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm all right, but I'm getting a very big sense at the moment that people in this country are sick to death of the way that it's been run, sick to death of always being taxed and never getting anything back, and seeing loads of people who come into this country from abroad and also people who are already living here getting everything for free.
Yeah, Mike, we're, as His Majesty's loyal opposition, pointing this out to the government all the time. We think that they promised the British public that they would smash these gangs. They cancelled our scheme to move everyone who came through the illegal route across the Channel to Rwanda. And now we have published something called a deportation bill, which actually would give us the power to deport illegal migrants, and would also ensure that in terms of immigration cases like that, that we could disapply some of the human rights provisions that prevent government from doing that. So we very helpfully provided that draft legislation to the government, and we think that they should take us up on it. And they certainly need to find a safe third country where they can process illegal migrants, so that we stop giving them the incentive of coming over, getting a 4-star hotel and a spending card where you can go out and spend money on gambling.
Yeah, well, this was meant to be the week, was it not, when Labour were going to start sort of seizing the assets of various people smuggling gang members. They were supposed to be stopping them from entering the country. They were supposed to be cracking down on them. But I don't really see any sign of that.
No, there was some half measures, weren't there, in terms of, you know, freezing a bank account of someone who's in Baghdad or something like that. No, I think they need to get a really big grip on this. The British public, as you say, have rightly had enough of these hotels filling up in town centres. It is absolutely wrong that people have that incentive to come over here and get that hotel accommodation, often go out and work for, Deliveroo and some of the other food delivery companies. And it's acting as a magnet, and we need to make sure that everyone who comes here illegally is immediately processed somewhere outside the country or indeed deported. And so we've published that draft legislation. We urge the government to take it up, and we urge them to find a safe third country where they can process the people who are making that unsafe illegal crossing.
Yeah, if only they would do what they say they're going to do. That would be a brilliant start, wouldn't it? But they just don't
get me started on that. Absolutely.
I know. Listen, we could do the whole show on it, Harriet, but we've got to run, so I'm going to let you go. Thank you very much indeed, Harriet Baldwin, Shadow Business Minister. If only the government would do what they say they're going to do. They're supposed to be cracking down on the gangs. They're supposed to be making sure that people who come here do not get to stay if they've come illegally. But nothing seems to be changing. It's all rhetoric and nothing really happens. Let's talk now to Tom Levitt on the doctors' strike, because of course we've got day one of the doctors' strike. The junior doctors are out for 5 days. They started at 7 a.m. We checked in with our picket line watch at 7 a.m. and there wasn't anybody actually on the picket line. So who knows if they're just like fancying taking a bit of a long weekend off. Let's talk to Tom Levitt, though, former Labour MP and founder of the Sector 4 Focus organisation. Tom, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Good to talk to you. You believe that this is all a hangover from the previous sort of 14 years, I guess, and money's not being spent properly in the NHS. The thing I find astonishing about the NHS, and I've lived a long time in this country, as you have probably, wondering why, with so much money flooding into it, it doesn't seem to work very well.
Well, the NHS is one of the largest organisations in the world. And the issues of managing an organisation that size are huge.
Yeah.
And it was set up in 1945 in 1948 with the vision that not many people would live beyond 70, and those who were over 65 would be looked after by their families. And quite honestly, the structural changes in Britain have not yet been fully recognised in the way that the health service operates.
Yeah.
I want to see a health service that is focused on stopping people getting sick in the first place, rather than being just there as a safety net once they fall. And that sort of change takes a long time. You can't deliver that in just the first year of government.
Yeah, but why is it so inefficient, and how can nothing be done seemingly about that? Because in my mind, it's become more inefficient over time, and I'm assuming that's partly because there's more people now being seen by the NHS. There's more people in the country. The population's bigger. You know, I remember growing up in a country where my doctor, when I was a kid, used to come to my house and see me if I wasn't very well, which doesn't happen anymore.
Well, that probably wasn't a hugely efficient use of that doctor's time, to be fair. Well,
it was, as far as I was concerned, when I was a child. I was rather happy about it.
The health service isn't built around you, Mike, unfortunately. We have to cater for
that's where they're going wrong, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially a population that is getting older. And as people get older, as chronic diseases get more widespread, conditions like diabetes, cancer, and so on. These are all issues to do really with the way society operates, and it reflects the fact that we're not focused on health as much as we should be. But look, you've just had Harriet Baldwin on, a former Treasury Minister, and she oversaw the period in which the NHS was underfunded. She oversaw the period in which the doctors,
but it's not underfunded, though. Come on, Tom. I mean, they get £200 billion a year. I mean, it's a massive, massive amount of money.
As I say, it's one of the 3 or 4 biggest organisations.
Yeah, but you can't. Yeah, but I'm not buying the underfunded argument, because the one thing it has is lots and lots of money. What it doesn't have is anybody who knows what to do with the money.
Well, you asked me to come and talk about the doctors' situation, and they show figures that show how far they've fallen behind. They obviously didn't have the guts to take on a Tory government. They think a Labour government would be a soft touch. That's
well, hang on, they were on strike for nearly an entire year when the Tories were in charge.
They had a 20-odd% rise last year, which was absolutely unprecedented. That recognised the fact that they'd been underpaid for years. They've had the biggest pay offer in the public sector this year, and I really hope that what you've seen this morning and you've just reported of nobody on the picket line, I hope that shows that doctors are voting with their feet today and not actually coming out on strike in the way they did before. Because, you know, you can't expect miracles. You can't expect everything to have changed in the first year of a Labour government. Judge the government after 5 years. That's the time to do it.
Yeah, but I'm not judging the government in this conversation. I'm judging the NHS in this conversation. And what I'm asking you is, why can nobody seemingly make the NHS work more efficiently? Because that is the real heart of the matter at the end of the day. You know, it's not underfunded. I'm not buying that in any way, shape or form. They've got loads of money, but what they do is they waste it. And I talk to people who work in the NHS all the time, and I can give you hook, line and sinker any number of arguments about why, when you open a cupboard, there are things in there that have been there for so long that they were purchased at ridiculous prices years ago and they were never used. You know, the fact that, you know, when they open a packet of pills and give one to somebody, they then have to throw the rest of them away. You know, the number of inefficiencies in the NHS are legend. Nobody seems to know how to fix that.
Well, let me tell you this, Mike. The last 2 times that I've been to the urgent care in my local hospital, I've been in and out within an hour. The last 3 times I've needed a GP appointment. I've had that on one occasion the same day, and on the other 2 occasions the very next day. So there are parts of the NHS which work better.
Well,
than
you're
others.
a very lucky man in that case, because I speak to people every day on my show, and I've got a whole load of them here who've got stories about how that is precisely not what happens to them.
Well, that's probably because lucky people like me don't complain to the media.
Well, it's not about whether you're lucky, it's about the fact that you are lucky if you get treated quickly, you are lucky if you can get an appointment with a GP, you are lucky if you've got a dentist in this country, you are lucky if you haven't had to wait 6 months or more for an operation, because most people have to do that.
Well, you raised the question. You raised the issue of luck, but no, you're right. It's not.
Well, you just said you were lucky. You actually raised it, to be honest.
You used the word first, but anyway, the thing is that yes, it needs to be better, and I'm simply pointing out that there are parts where we know it does work, and you know. I'm probably going to have a knee operation.
Well, again, you said it to me. I'm sorry that, you know, the health service isn't based around whether or not you can get seen or not. The fact is, it's incredibly inefficient. And until we wake up to that matter and fix it and try to fix it, you know, we're never going to get anywhere. You know, the fact is that, you know, there are 7.5 million people waiting on lists to be seen by doctors, right? There's a secondary list which has got another 10 million on it. So, you know, practically a fifth of the nation is waiting for an operation or a procedure for more than a year.
I'm not dismissing that at all. And I think in what you've just said, I guess West Streeting would probably agree with you. There is a lot to be done. It could be a lot better, and it doesn't properly reflect the needs of an older population with a greater degree of chronic illness in it. And yes, all these things need to be improved. All I'm saying is, don't expect everything to be done in the first year of a government.
No, I'm not even blaming Labour for this. I'm just saying that, you know, why, after, you know, several decades of my life, has the NHS continued to get worse every single year? That's all. Well, you don't have an answer for that.
Well, all of those figures which you've just mentioned, if you go back 20 years, you will see that things were a lot better in 2010 when Labour left office. Spending as a proportion...
there were a lot fewer people living here then.
I don't know about a lot fewer. I mean, if you get on your hobby horse of migrants, then, you know, thank goodness we've got migrants who are working in the health service. So it would fall apart.
Yeah, but there's more migrants using the health service than there are working in it. You know, otherwise, you know, the sums don't add up, do they?
I'm sure you'd like to publish the figures on that, because, you know, most of the migrants that you're talking about are healthy young men, and they are the least users of the health service. But it's older people principally who are the ones who are needing a disproportionate share of NHS services, and it's that demographic change.
There's lots of elderly migrants here as well. Many people have come to this country perfectly legally and brought many members of their family. You know, so it's not about whether they're young men or anything, and it's not necessarily about migrants. It's just about the population increase has put more pressure on the NHS, and the NHS has got worse at what it does. It's as simple as that.
In places, it has, and these things need to be put right, and I'm sure West Streeting has a plan for doing that.
Well, I hope so. It doesn't seem like it. Anyway, listen, Tom, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Tom Levitt, former Labour MP and founder of Sector 4 Focus. I couldn't quite make out whether Tom thinks that NHS is brilliant or not, really. I mean, everybody can tell you that it's not brilliant, is it? Let's get a voice note from Matt.
Morning, Mike. Great show, although I do get wound up every time I hear of Keir Starmer saying that business confidence is running at its highest. It's complete nonsense. I was at a business function yesterday and moving around the table, everybody had similar concerns. They didn't want to employ people because of the new Workers' Rights Bill. A lot of people were employing labour abroad like us. And they're really stuck and they don't really know what to do. They don't know whether to invest or not. They don't know whether the economy is going to go down or not. Consumer and business confidence has got to be at its lowest, and it's not getting any better, and it won't get any better until we change this government. Still, we've got another 4 years left, and I don't know what's going to happen there. But let's see.
Yeah, I know. Absolutely ridiculous. There's no question, is there, that business is in crisis right now because they literally don't know what the government's going to do next. I don't think anybody can predict what Rachel Reeves will do if she's still the Chancellor in November, or in October rather, when she gives her a budget statement. Nobody knows what she's going to say because she doesn't know what she's going to say. She's actually on the lookout for more economic advisors. So if you've got any advice for Rachel, by all means send it in to me and I'll pass it on to her. 0344 499 1000. Neil in Surrey says, after just the first hour of your show, I've been moved to cry into my gruel, laugh out loud, shout at the TV and spit feathers and a few obscenities. You are the voice of the nation. Can it be true that migrant theft gangs cannot be arrested, charged and convicted because they have no fixed abode or ID? Surely, if they cannot be identified or they refuse to give a name and address, they should be held in custody until they can be and then deported. Well, you would think so, wouldn't you? But apparently, no. That's not the way it works. If apparently you haven't got any ID and you haven't got any fixed abode and you can't tell anybody who you are, they can't arrest you. It's completely bonkers, isn't it? Absolutely mad. Sophie Ellsworth's coming up. News Corps Australia's Europe correspondent. We're going to get from her exactly what's going on in Scotland and when we can expect Donald Trump to have wheels down. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:41. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until, of course, 10 o'clock. Wes Streeting put a tweet out last night saying that Keir Starmer has asked resident doctors to break ranks with the BMA leadership. The industrial action that starts today is in no one's interest and medics should not follow their union down a dangerous and destructive route. That's the message from the Prime Minister. So he's once again upsetting people on the left of the party because, of course, you know, the Marxist BMA are here to crush the Labour government because they believe that the Labour government are actually really the Tories in disguise. It's a shocking state of affairs, though. If you're trying to get to see a doctor today or you've got an appointment that's been cancelled, we'd love to hear from you. 0344 499 1000. Let's talk now to Sophie Ellsworth, News Corps Australia's Europe correspondent, who's up in Ayr in Scotland waiting for Donald Trump to arrive. Sophie, very good morning to you.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, very well. It's a beautiful part of the world there. Turnberry, one of my favourite golf courses of all time, is, of course, now Trump Turnberry. And we're expecting the Donald to show up at some point. We don't know yet if he's left Washington, D.C. We don't think he has. What are you expecting there?
Yeah, that's right, Mike. Look, he is expected to arrive here today on Friday, but details are sketchy. We haven't had a lot of information here on the ground on exactly when President Donald Trump will arrive. But I can certainly assure you, Mike, I was down at Turnberry last night and the security is extremely intense. There's road closures everywhere, police on pretty much every roadblock that you go to, and it's very difficult to get around there. You can't turn down streets now. Areas are cordoned off, witches' hats along the road to make sure you can't stop. So this is a high level, as expected, high level security operation, and the airspace around Turnberry will also be shut off as we wait for his arrival.
Right. And so where does Air Force One land? Does he land at Prestwick and then take a car from there?
Well, that's right, Mike. He's due to arrive at Prestwick Airport this afternoon or this evening, we expect. I was just talking to a chap in the local service station here and said, oh, you know, Donald Trump might stop in and buy his Coke and newspapers on the way to Turnberry. And he laughed at me. He said, no, the word is that he will be getting choppered from the airport over to Turnberry. It's probably about half an hour, 45-minute drive, but it's a beautiful part of the world. I'd strongly advise him, Mike, take the road. This is absolutely glorious part of Scotland, sensational around here.
Yeah, it really is. And of course, one of the things that's been promised is a lot of demonstrations. Presumably what you're saying about the security will be trying to keep those demonstrations away. Because I remember, I think the last time he came to Turnberry, there was a very famous moment when a comedian turned up with a sign with a rather rude message on it, which got quite a lot of play around the world. Presumably they're going to hope that they can stop all that.
Well, you'd think so, Mike. I mean, the reporting is that there's about 5,000 police officers on duty across the 5-day period that President Trump is here. But on the front of the Scottish Sun today, they've certainly got fired up here saying the First Minister is whipping up, it says here, whipping up the Don's demos, and he's saying basically do Scotland proud but peacefully protest. So whether or not he's encouraging that, but look, Mike, the fact that there's protests planned for Aberdeen, Edinburgh and also Dumfries, there's no doubt that the anti-Trump protesters will really be hoping to draw that media attention while he is here in Scotland. Yeah, and John Swinney's going to meet with him, I believe, isn't he? As is Keir Starmer at some point. Is that thought to be happening today or maybe tomorrow? Well, you wouldn't think it would be today because today will be travel time for the president. He's due to meet Sir Keir Starmer on Monday. And yes, he's also meeting the First Minister, the Scottish First Minister, John Swinney. But it is also interesting, Mike, because don't forget, he was the First Minister who endorsed Kamala Harris at the 2024 presidential election. So that's going to be slightly awkward when he's sitting in a room with President Trump, because President Trump was very offended by him doing this, and he certainly doesn't hold back, as we know. So it could be a frosty meeting, Mike. Yeah, it could be very much so. Well, listen, enjoy the time up there. It is a wonderful place, and I'm very jealous that you're there. Sophie Ellsworth, thank you very much indeed. News Corp Australia's Europe correspondent up there in beautiful Turnberry, near the Ayrshire, or on the Ayrshire coast. We'll find out exactly what happens a bit later on. We're going to talk now to LaDonna Harvey, but first, before we do that, talking about, you know, frosty meetings with John Swinney, this is Donald Trump's clash yesterday with the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell.
So we're taking a look, and it looks like it's about 3.1 billion. It went up a little bit, or a lot. So the 2.7 is now 3.1.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah, I haven't heard that from anybody at the Fed.
Yeah, it just came out.
Our notes had it about 3.1 as well.
3.1,
3.2. This came from us?
Yes. I don't know who does that.
you're including the Martin renovation. You just added
our entire capital.
Yeah, you just added in a third building. Is what that is. That's a third building.
Well, no, but it's a building that's being built.
No, it was built 5 years ago. We finished Martin 5 years ago.
It's part of the overall work.
But it's not new.
So we're going to take a look. We're going to see what's happening, and it's got a long way. Do you expect any more additional cost overruns?
Don't expect them. We're ready for them, but we have a little bit of a reserve that we may use. But no, we don't expect to be finished in 2027. We're well along, as you can see.
President, does the issue give you any? As a real estate developer, what would you do with a project manager who would be over budget?
Generally speaking, what would I do? I'd fire him.
Do you think this issue, Mr. President, gives you cause to do that?
Well, I'm here.
Yeah, Donald Trump there giving his usual sort of unusual style of display when he's out there in public. Let's talk to LaDonna Harvey. LaDonna, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, and I'm glad that I was not in that particular press conference.
It was a kind of teeth-grinding moment, wasn't it, where that guy's just shaking his head, clearly doesn't like Donald Trump, doesn't want to be there, doesn't really understand what he's doing or what he's saying, and then really getting pretty well stitched up by the Donald by the end of it.
Yeah, the Jerome Powell. There's been a lot of let's call it acrimony, for lack of a better term, between the two of them.
Yes.
He has been mad at Powell for quite some time because Powell refuses to lower interest rates in America, and Trump believes that that's stymieing the economy.
Right.
On the other side of it, you lower interest rates when you do need to boost the economy, and right now what they've been trying to do since post-pandemic is kind of stop the runaway train of the economy, slow it down a little bit so inflation isn't high.
Right.
It depends on which end of this that you particularly are. If you're looking to buy a house, you don't like Jerome Powell either.
Yeah.
But if you want your grocery prices to go down, then you kind of do like them. So it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But man, they do not like each other at all.
No, it's been an interesting week in Washington, hasn't it? With all the stories about the Epstein files and also Hillary Clinton. Let's have a look at this clip. This is Tulsi Gabbard talking about Hillary Clinton's mental state.
There were high-level DNC emails that detailed evidence of Hillary's, quote, psycho-emotional problems, uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness, and that then Secretary Clinton was allegedly on a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers.
So, what's been Hillary Clinton's reaction to all this?
She, much like President Obama, because part of that was directed at him as well, is probably pretty nonplussed about the whole thing. She's a strange lady. Was she on tranquilizers every day? I have no idea. I was not inside that campaign, but there is a lot coming out of Tulsi Gabbard's office that has led a lot of people to, you just kind of side eye it and go, is that completely correct?
Right.
Are those all of
It's a kind of weird thing.
Was there more?
Yeah, I mean, it's a kind of weird thing for me, for them to be so concentrated on something that happened quite a long time ago that shouldn't really matter anymore to them. You know what I mean? Like, the Trump administration's got plenty of things to get on with. Why focus so much on Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton?
Well, I think that let's go back to Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
The Epstein files, Pam Bondi, who is our attorney general, said that she had the Epstein files in her hands.
Yeah.
And apparently she did not. So there was perhaps a bit of obfuscation there. But it's well known that Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein ran in the same circles.
Yeah.
They were probably pretty good friends. Now, did Donald Trump have anything to do with Epstein's parties and jets and anything else? I'm not seeing a lot that says yes on that, but they definitely knew each other and they definitely were friends.
Yeah.
And right now, I think he's just trying to, because he cannot get courts to release the grand jury stuff, he's really trying to kind of divert from that. But this is what he does. He says, look over here because of this thing that's going on over here.
Right.
And that's typical Trump for him.
Absolutely right. Final word on Hulk Hogan. Here's his acceptance speech at the Republican convention, I think it was, speech. But what a character.
He really was. I mean, he came from a time, so I hate to talk about my age, especially when I'm feeling pretty old. But, you know, at 71, he was huge in the 80s. And I.
Got a knock on the door and they asked me whether I'd visited Israel.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock, of course. Tony in Derby says this, great show, mate. Starmer's India trade deal, what a joke. This man has no idea about negotiating. He went to buy a car he would pay full price and come out with a wheelbarrow. The bloke and his government are a joke. Great show. Thanks very much indeed. And Paul says, Mike, wow, a sexy woman, a fast car, and you and Benedict chatting sense. A wonderful start to the weekend. Yeah, well, maybe common sense has returned to the world of advertising. Who can say? Let's talk to Holly Whitbread now, Conservative councillor for Epping West. And, of course, over the past week or so, there's been an awful lot of focus from the media on what has been going on. The police commissioner there, who says that moving migrants out of the Epping Hotel is probably a good idea. And the council last night, I believe, actually voted to move all of the illegal migrants who are currently in the Bell Hotel to move somewhere else. Holly, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Is that right? Is that the case? The council have said that they now want to move all of these migrants out of the hotel?
So I proposed the motion last night, and it was calling on the Home Office to close the hotel. It was calling for the immediate closure of the Bell Hotel and then the managed closure of the Phoenix Hotel, which is just a little bit down the road. So we have 2 asylum hotels in Epping Forest. But obviously, as a council, we have no say over the asylum seekers being in the hotel. We repeatedly called on the Home Office to close the hotel. And this is historic, going back months and indeed years when it was open before. And the Home Office have repeatedly ignored us.
Right. And so what chance is there now that the Home Office, given the amount of sort of media attention on it, they might actually do what you want?
Well, all we can do is keep putting on pressure. The council was completely united last night across all the political parties. So from our side, we're going to do everything we can through democratic means or legal means, if possible, to try and get this hotel closed.
Yeah. And so last night, it was a very peaceful evening, wasn't it? There were people demonstrating. They walked, I think, to the council, outside the council chamber. There was a lot of police there as well. We could see that. We're watching it now. But there wasn't any kind of outside interference, if you like.
Yeah, it was really good last night just to see. It was largely local people, very peaceful, which is exactly what you want to see from protests. Unfortunately, we didn't see it last week where we had some trouble causers on both the left and the right. But last night was peaceful and it was local people.
Yeah. And so is there likely to be another protest over the weekend? Because originally I think I was told that Saturday night was going to be a big night.
We were told on Sunday that potentially Tommy Robinson was coming, and there is still kind of organisation that I've seen online. Whether that's still going ahead, I'm not sure. But hopefully, if it does go ahead, it's peaceful, well managed, and we don't have the trouble that we saw last week.
Yeah. And as far as you're concerned, just generally speaking about these migrants in this particular place, if they do move, they'll have to go somewhere else, and they'll just become a problem for somebody else, won't they? And if you do shut down the hotel, hopefully that means you don't have any more.
Yeah, I mean, there's many issues with this hotel. It's a quarter of a mile from a school. The people within the hotel are all male. There's no real safeguarding or checks on the people, which is why we think the Bell Hotel specifically is completely inappropriate. Within our motion last night, we talked more generally about the failures of the illegal immigration system in this country, which is a failure of governments of all colour, my party, as well as the current government. But you know, we are conscious that these people have to be moved somewhere else, but Epping has become the epicentre of the debate around asylum, and it's no longer safe for our town, our community, but also the people living within the hotel, and that's why the immediate closure is really necessary.
And I mean, is there a process by which you contact the Home Office, or do they contact you? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, they've been pretty terrible, to be honest. There's the kind of meetings with officers where they provide kind of general information, but after the incident, the sexual assault incident, the leader met with the Home Office and really pressed for the closure of the hotel as quickly as possible, and they pretty much kind of shut him down. So they really haven't been listening. We have pretty much demanded a meeting with the Home Secretary, as have the local MPs, which is yet to happen. So we are very frustrated with the Home Office. They don't seem to be listening or receptive at all. But we really do hope they look at what's happening in Epping, they look at the specific circumstance of the Bell and take notice.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, good luck with it, because I think many people in other parts of the country are behind you, and if you can get some success with it, you know, that could be a real good indicator of what we can do in the rest of the country as well. Holly, thanks very much indeed. Holly Whitbread there, Conservative Councillor for Epping West, talking about how she needs, and they need, the Home Office to sit up and take notice of what they've decided, which is that they want to shut down the Bell Hotel in Epping, and they want to make sure that no more migrants come into their community to cause the disruption that they have already caused. And maybe, just maybe, if that starts, it can go all over the country. We'll see whether or not there's going to be any trouble over the weekend, of course. We'll keep an eye on that for you right here. Coming up in the next hour, Casey Perry is going to join us, British Public Relations Specialist, former Director, of course, of Communications in Downing Street when Theresa May was the Prime Minister. We've got lots more of your calls to take, lots more of your voice notes as well. This, of course, is Morning Glory. We'll be back after the news.
My message to people smugglers is this. I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Smash the gangs. Smash the people smuggling gangs.
People smuggling puns.
He couldn't even smash an avocado for a piece of toast.
Or the people... What would that... The people...
I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Well, it might be if you smashed any, if you found any.
The people smash... The smash...
And he hasn't smashed anything. I mean, literally all he does is he smashes records every sort of couple of weeks, where more and more people come in a period of 24 hours.
Smash the gangs that are running this vile trade.
You're never going to smash the gangs. That's something that basically is impossible. The gangs are like the Hydra. You cut the head off and another two grow.
So I did write to ministers and say that I wasn't convinced that smashing the gangs was the right sort of way of thinking about things.
We will smash the gangs that undermine our security.
Keir Starmer has just tweeted 15 minutes ago. He says, I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source. Maybe I'll just read it all in his accent, shall I?
There is no return to freedom of movement. We have left the EU. I do not accept that that prevents us working with other police units here, with prosecutors here, to smash the gangs.
Well, I'm sure the smuggling gangs are absolutely quaking in their boots now. Keir Starmer's on their case. Solving this issue, smashing the gangs, is that the impossible dream, Tom?
It really seems beyond him at the minute, I have to say.
We're going to get the evil people smugglers and we're going to smash them and we're going to put them in jail. That will solve the migrant crisis. Prime Minister Keir Starmer's promise to smash the gangs has resulted in just 5 convictions. Hurrah for operating small boats.
So what he really wants to say is that this policy of smashing the gangs is a total and utter disaster. There isn't a cat in hell's chance that it's going to work. You just
crap.
can't say it.
It's crap. That's what he's basically saying.
I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. Mark my words, I will take back control of our borders. That means cutting migration, ending the use of asylum hotels and ramping up our efforts to stop small boat crossings.
It's like a parallel universe, the real world, as told by the impressive David Bolt, and Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves' fantasy world.
We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 5 minutes past 8. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. The junior doctor strike is underway. It kicks off around about 7 o'clock this morning. We'll be going live to one of the picket lines. I think you can see it there, down at Guy's, St Thomas's Hospital, I think, near Waterloo, where there's a bit of a ragtag bunch of people, you know, hanging about, basically knowing that they're doing harm to patients, knowing that it's going to cost £87 million, knowing that it's going to probably cost about 250,000 appointments, which won't happen as a result of a 5-day strike, knowing indeed that Wes Streeting, their supposed ally in the government, has said that they shouldn't do it, has said that it's a mistake, said that they should not sacrifice the ideology of Marxism on the altar of patients who will die and suffer as a result. But they don't care, do they? They're junior doctors, man. You know, they don't make enough money. They knew that they wouldn't make enough money when they got into the job, but they know they'll make loads of money later on when they qualify to do proper doctor's work. But yet, they care not a jot about the people. What about the Hippocratic Oath? What about the thing that said, first do no harm? No, they've forgotten about all of that. We'll be talking about that. Plus, of course, coming up in this hour, we'll be getting a Sun journalist in who will tell us about the front page story, which is all about migrants taking a liberty. This is a bunch of migrants who are being put up for free in a hotel in North London. They wake up every morning, they pick up some shopping bags, they go to the West End, and they basically rob and shoplift through all sorts of designer shops, which, whether it's Selfridges, whether it's Gucci, whether it's any other department store around and about in a very expensive part of town, and they don't actually get caught because they don't have any information for the police. When they get arrested, they say, I don't know what my name is, I don't know where I live, I don't know what I'm going to do, so because I have no details about my identity, you can't actually arrest me. And that is where we are. Absolutely extraordinary. We're going to be speaking to Katie Perrier coming up, British Public Relations Specialist, former Director of Communications in Downing Street. Let's get a voice note, first of all, though, from Elle on the NHS.
Well, I turned up at hospital on Monday the 22nd for a lung function test, which has now been moved to the 4th of August, and they didn't tell me. They normally send a text to say you have a letter. The reason I'm having that is I had pneumonia in March due to the fact that my house is so cold. Thanks, government. And I'm also waiting for a cancer referral, which is meant to be 2 weeks, and I'm not holding out much hope of getting that. That was a few days ago that they said they'd refer me, and I've heard nothing so far.
Yeah, the NHS doesn't work. It's as simple as that. It's absolute shambles. Meanwhile, front page of the Daily Telegraph has got farming organisations closing at a record rate after the raid by the government on inheritance tax. More than 6,000 agricultural, forestry and fishing businesses have shut in the year since Labour have got in. So another great tick in the green box for Rachel Reeves. Well done, Rach. The woman who thinks she's an economist but actually is wrecking the economy in this country. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. It's 8 minutes past 8. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. A message here, it says, I was watching a junior doctor's picket line. One sign read, fair pay for safe care. That sounds a lot like a threat to me. And pay us what we want or you will not be safe at the NHS. Absolutely despicable. Greed trumps care for these entitled money grabbers. Great show. Thank you very much indeed. Margaret in Birmingham says, when Donald Trump arrives at Turnberry, they should play Flower of Scotland. And why are morons protesting? Go, Donald, go. And one from Susan, who says, morning, Mike. On my days, I've worked in the NHS since 1977 as an ophthalmic nurse, a student-registered nurse, and last 20 years as a midwife. Not one clinician is underpaid, but hell, there are some greedy, needy, whining junior doctors out there who knew what they were signing up to when they started training. I'm disgusted that they are holding people's lives as a ransom just to get more pay. Life isn't fair. You've got a job. Blinking well do it. Junior doctors. Happy Friday, says Susan. Thank you very much indeed. Well, let's say a very happy Friday now to Katie Perrier, British Public Relations Specialist, expert, some would say, former Director of Communications in Downing Street. Katie, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm all right, but I'm considering leaving the country like everybody else because it's in such a bleeding mess and it's being stewarded over a cliff by this horrendous government. I don't think I've in my entire lifetime have I seen such a useless administration in this country.
Well, I see your columns in various newspapers on a regular basis, Mike, saying the same thing, which I think is replicating what people are thinking around the country, right? They've had enough. They voted in a government after a failing Conservative government. But that message from Keir Starmer was one of change, but it didn't say change to what. It didn't say over the next 5 years we will really improve conditions, we'll put more money in your pocket, we'll fix the NHS, we'll make your schools better. And so Keir Starmer is in office, realising the scale of the challenge in Britain and not necessarily delivering in all the areas that people want. And so they're getting really frustrated, as we've seen in places like Epping and elsewhere across the country. They're getting really angry. And the government's got a problem and a challenge on its hands, not just over the summer months where people are hot and bothered and have had enough, whether it's junior doctors or farmers or whatever it might be, but in the months and the years ahead, because it's a long time until the next general election, and people have run out of patience already.
Yeah, it really is astonishing. I mean, even today, right? I mean, I get to look at his tweets that he puts out, and I don't know who's doing it for him, because I know when you were in Downing Street, Twitter wasn't quite as big of a thing as it is now. But, you know, he's got this Twitter department, and he put out a tweet last night in which it said, we promised 1,000 more GPs this year. We've delivered double that, 2,000 new GPs hired, delivering millions more, and making sure the NHS is there for everyone whenever they need it. Our plan for change in action. But it's been corrected by a load of people who have sort of community noted it, if you like, in which they've said, actually, the net gain is only 600. It is nothing like 2,000. And he gets picked up on this all the time. He keeps making factual statements which are, in fact, incorrect. And I think that's one of his big problems. It's one of the problems of this government. Everything they say turns out not to be true. And much of it sounds like an outright lie.
Well, when you're speaking at number 10 Downing Street, you really need to make sure that you're replicating the feelings and the experiences of people on the ground. And that comment in terms of the improvements to GP services is just not felt around the country. I needed an appointment for my mother not that long ago, and in order to get an appointment for 3 to 4 weeks' time, I had to queue up outside the doctor's surgery at 7:30 in the rain in the morning. You know, I'm a working mum. That keeps me away from the office. That makes the country less productive. Yeah. And it means that I'm there in the rain with a whole bunch of older people who really should be in bed because they're not very well, and they're waiting for an appointment 3 to 4 weeks' time. It's not like they were waiting for something within the next 24 hours. Right. The system is really broken, but it's also incredibly inefficient. And I just don't buy the argument that the solution to the NHS is to just keep on chucking more money at it. It needs huge reform. And I think Labour misunderstood the size of the challenge when they took into office, because really they needed to be bold and they needed to be radical because the country was crying out for significant change. And yet tinkering around the edges hasn't really worked in the way that they thought that it would.
But isn't that the thing that's surprising I mean, a professional, communications specialist like yourself, they said before they got in that they would be a government of service. They said that they had prepared for every single departmental job that they were going to be doing. They knew that everything that they wanted to do had been fully costed. They wouldn't do anything. And it turns out that actually they were so inexperienced that they didn't have a clue what they were doing when they went in. They took Sue Gray in, right? Nobody talks about her anymore. She was meant to be this amazing woman who was going to create the first 100 days of a new Labour government. She didn't even last 100 days. She lasted 93 days and then she got fired. I mean, the whole thing has been shambolic, hasn't it?
Well, it's just proof that these things are really, really difficult to do, and you need probably some business brains and some other people around the table with more experience. Many people around that cabinet have never run a business before. Many special advisors in government have no experience of growth generation, and yet the thing that matters the most in the country right now to be able to fix the public services is you need to raise more money. And you can't keep on doing that by taxing the same people time and time and time again. You need business generation, you need growth, you need investment from around the world here rather than Germany or France or Spain. And therefore, you've got to create the right conditions for that investment. And what we're seeing is, as we look and stare down the barrel of a budget coming in the autumn, is there's no other way really that Rachel Reeves will be able to raise more money other than hitting business again. And as we've seen from farmers, as we've seen from other businesses across the country who are dealing with the double whammy of the national insurance rises and the crackdowns on things like inheritance tax, and you can't hand over your business that you built up all your life to your family without being taxed to the hilt. These are hardworking people. They work silly hours and often for not lots of return, and that's kind of the final straw for some people. And so I think there's something around also the nation thinking, right, where's this growth going to come from if the government doesn't know necessarily what it's doing or it's not joined up enough? And is it me? Are they going to come for me again? And how much more can I take of that? There's only so much more many more taxes I can pay.
Yeah, exactly right. And of course, years ago, you wouldn't have thought that Jeremy Corbyn would be a threat to anybody. I mean, I know that, Theresa May thought that he was, and then she decided that it would be a great idea to have an election, and suddenly it wasn't a great idea. But have a look at this. Jeremy Corbyn on his new party, which apparently is scaring the hell out of Labour.
We announced this today. We announced the broad framework. A lot of support's coming in, and I'm doing a lot of meetings and events all around the country over the next week or so, and then through August and September a lot more. The problem is that ahead of the last general election, Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves boxed themselves in by saying they would never change any level of taxation, particularly for the richest in our society. They now have a financial problem. Not very surprising.
Imagine thinking that Jeremy Corbyn actually looks sensible, because he actually does, in light of what's going on around him. And this new party, which they can't apparently decide on the name for, if they do actually go into a polling situation, they nick half of Labour's votes.
I mean, what position we must be in a nation to think that Jeremy Corbyn is the answer to anything is the problem I'm really worried about.
Yeah.
But that goes to show the state of politics. What we're facing in the next election is a fragmented party state, which is much more reflective of what's been going on in Europe over the last couple of decades than we've ever experienced in the UK. And that is an issue because really you need clear and decisive government and leadership. And you would have thought that with a large majority that the Labour Party got at the last election, that would give the stability that you need. I had business leaders saying to me, thank God there's just stability, Katie. Just thank God that we have a large majority. We don't have this kind of chaos that we've had before. We've got some stability. We can move on. We can deal with a government that's been really open and engaging with the business community and wants to work together to deliver the growth the nation needs. And the result of that is anything but. And of course, now you've got other people like Jeremy Corbyn entering the frame. You've also got independent candidates across the country that's starting to get quite a lot of support, especially from the Muslim community and others. That kind of breeds a scenario where we don't have cohesion and we're pitting communities against each other, and that's not healthy for the nation. We need politics to be a little bit more grown up. Jeremy Corbyn can't even name his own party, let alone think about running a country. And if you just listen to what he said You know, it's all about the minutiae. We've set up a board, we've done our paperwork, we're getting together. It's concerning that he hasn't got a grip of the major problems of the nation, and yet he thinks that the way to attack his own Labour Party is the fact that it's not going to put more taxes up. More taxes and taxes and taxes are not the answer, because the rich can go elsewhere, their money is mobile, they just go to another country. You've seen it already. You know, loads and loads of people have left Britain that have got the wealth to do so, and the rest of us stay behind and have ever higher tax burdens. If Jeremy Corbyn thinks that's the answer, I've got news for him. It's not.
Yeah, absolutely right. So what would you do if you were drafted in, suddenly parachuted into Downing Street to fix it and tell them what to do? How would you fix it? Because right now, I don't think anybody likes Keir Starmer. I think people detest him. I think they detest this government. What can they do to fix it?
Now, you probably say, Katie, comms is your thing, stay in your lane. But the problem is that you can't communicate something that's been badly run. Yeah. And what will happen is the government will continue down this path of not achieving, and then Reform will get more and more votes and have a shot at power the next time round. So I'd be sitting there thinking, what would Reform do? What's the plan that Reform has? And how can I make sure I inject some of that energy or some of that reform or some of that, bold thinking and radical change that's needed? Because what will eventually happen is the government will tinker around the edges, thinking they're doing really wonderful things, thinking they're making a difference. People don't feel it at home. They don't feel it in that NHS queue. They don't feel it in money in their pockets. And eventually they'll vote them out of office. And then someone will come in and radically change things and be really bold. If that's not a wake-up call for people to see what's coming down the line, the message to Keir Starmer and others is you can do that now. You run the country. You have the power to do that. So people really want you to get on with it and be bold and be decisive and not let your party hold you back.
Yeah. Well, let's see if they can repair what it is that they've done to damage this country. I'm not sure they can. Katie, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Katie Perrier there, Public Relations Specialist, former Downing Street advisor, of course, former Director of Communications for Theresa May back then in the day when Theresa May was Prime Minister. It's coming up to 20 minutes past 8. We're going to speak to a junior doctor in a moment who's down on a picket line at St Thomas's Hospital here in London. Anna in Surrey says, I live next to Aldershot. The illegals are housed in local hotels which are routes for schools and shops. They are known to work in local businesses. There have been several attacks on women. The situation here is untenable, and I'm terrified that the useless Labour MP will allow them to go into HMOs to try to hide them. After the way that the protests have been dealt with, I no longer trust our police to keep us safe. And Morning Mike says, Martin, watching your show and the number of police vehicles is amazing when you take into account that you never see a bobby on the beat. How much is this costing? Well, that's a very good question. We will try and come back to you. I'll tell you what something is costing, and that is the NHS doctors' strike, which is costing £87 million. It's going to go on for 5 days. It's going to affect 250,000 people, 250,000 appointments likely to be cancelled, whether they're actual operations or whether they're actual procedures or whether they're appointments. They ain't happening because the junior doctors have, in Wes Streeting's words, been so reckless and so ridiculous that they've decided that they're going to stop working for 5 days. We're going to speak now to Melissa Ryan, co-chair of the BMA's Resident Doctors Committee, down on the picket line at St Thomas's Hospital here in London. Melissa, very good morning to you.
Hello.
Wes Streeting calls you reckless. Do you think he's wrong?
I think that Mr. Streeting should have come and presented us with a credible offer to restore our pay so that we could have called all these strikes off. We've been asking for months now for him to come and negotiate in order to avert strike action. You can see or hear behind me that there's an awful lot of doctors here who are just wanting their pay erosion reversed, and it's a crying shame that we find ourselves on a picket line when this could have all been called off.
What would you normally be doing today if you weren't on a picket line?
So I'm a paediatric trainee. I work with children and babies, and I should be on a ward in Nottingham looking after the babies today. Instead, I find myself on a picket line in London, a little bit frustrated about this because the government had an opportunity to avert the strikes by giving us a credible offer, but they failed to deliver.
So who's looking after the children then?
So we have senior doctors who have stepped down to cover the resident doctors. We've got A&Es that are covered, so if patients are listening at home, don't be afraid to come in and get emergency care. Don't be afraid, don't sit at home. And I apologise for the disruption that this has caused. As I said, I do not want to be out on strike. I'm sure the patients don't want me out on strike either. We just need the government to come in and negotiate and give us an offer.
How much more money do you want?
So our first year doctor is currently on £18.60 odd an hour. We're asking for £4 an hour more. And this is a first year doctor who might have £80,000 or £100,000 in student loan debt. But they might be that first doctor to see your loved one when they come into hospital. And so we're asking for £4 an hour more. Do you know what? We've got assistants that are paid more than that. They're paid £24 an hour. They're paid £9,000 more than a doctor in their first year. We would like our pay restored so that we can retain those bright young doctors in the NHS so they can do their jobs with the patients.
You always talk about pounds per hour. How much do you actually get paid per year? What's your annual salary?
So if you start off in the first year, you're roughly on
No, I'm asking about your salary. No, I'm asking your salary. What's your salary?
So my salary depends on how many hours I do.
Well,
how
much did you make?
Pounds per hour, which is about £21 per hour.
Well, I don't know how many hours you work. What's your annual salary, please?
So my annual salary is eroded by 21% on since 2008, every single resident doctor here.
I'm looking for a number.
And all we want is for our pay to be restored.
No, I'm looking for a number. Can you not just tell me how much your salary is? Like, how much did you get paid last year?
As I said, my salary is eroded 21%. I'm not here to talk about my salary. I'm here to talk about all
you're asking for taxpayers. No, hang on. You're asking, Melissa, you're asking for taxpayers to fund your work, right? Because you work for the public sector, you work for the NHS, so basically taxpayers fund your salary. So I think we're entitled to know how much you get paid.
I get paid £21 an hour. And that is 21% eroded on my pay from 2008.
All right. So how many hours did you work?
All right.
Well, tell us how many hours you worked. Tell us how many hours you worked last year, and we'll multiply it by 21.
I don't know how many hours I worked in the year. I can
do you
tell
know
you
how much
average,
money? Do you know how much money you made?
40 to 72,000 at 72 hours a week.
Did you make? Do you make? I don't know. Well, do you give us?
I can tell you another thing.
Can you give us a ballpark
figure? I should be
figure?
at work today looking after the patients.
Yeah, but can you give us a ballpark? Do you make 50,000 a year? Do you make 70,000 a year? Do you make 30,000 a year? Can you not give us a ballpark figure?
My salary is not really relevant here. What's
your
relevant
salary,
is
of course,
the
your
fact that
salary is bloody relevant. You're striking to get more money. Your salary is very relevant. So why can't you just tell me what it is? What are you trying to hide?
I'm not trying to hide anything.
Well, you're hiding your salary.
An hour. I've told you I'm off on work.
You're hiding your salary. Why can't you just be honest and straightforward?
I don't want to be on a picket line, and I'm sure the public doesn't want me to be on a picket line either. I'm sure
the public wants to know what your salary is.
Slightly £23 an hour.
No, the public wants to know what you're paid, because you're asking for more money from the public. So in order for us to justify that, we need to know how much you get paid and how much more money you want. How's that unreasonable as a question?
What you need to know is that our pay is eroded, and that's why we're out.
No, what I need to know is the facts, right?
What you need to know is that it's a political choice.
If you can't tell me what you're getting paid now and how much money you want in future, then I'm afraid you are an irrelevant and useless individual, and you shouldn't be actually representing anybody.
I am being paid £21 an hour. We want to see our pay restored, and that will take a first-year doctor up by £4 an hour. That is what we're asking for. We're asking for the government to come and negotiate. We're not interested in negotiating with people live on air. We're interested in talking to the government, and we haven't had an offer from the government.
The government also,
which is why we're back out
the government think you're reckless. The government think you're doing damage to the health service. You're charging an awful lot of money now over the course of the next 5 days. It's going to cost £87 million to the Exchequer, right? Which is our money, which you're wasting, and you haven't even got the decency to tell me how much money you earn. I think you're absolutely outrageous.
What I think is outrageous is the fact that these strikes have gone ahead when the government could have put an offer on the table and they didn't.
Well, how can they make an offer to you if you don't tell them how much you want?
We want a first-year doctor to go up by £4 an hour. We want our pay restored to 2008 levels.
How much money did you make?
We're not worth less than doctors in 2008.
Where were you a doctor in 2008?
How is that relevant?
Well, because you say you want the pay restored to 2008 levels, but I don't believe you were a doctor in 2008. Were you?
So 2008 is when austerity came in line, is when our pay started being
eroded. Were you a doctor in 2008? Were you a doctor in 2008?
We've had 17 years of pay erosion. And
were you a doctor in 2008?
To be reversed. It's not relevant about what happens with doctors
You're asking
when they
to
come
have
in.
your
It's a
pay
very
restored
long
to a time when you were a
training
child.
Program.
How about you get your pocket money in 2008? How much was that? I mean, you know, you're just not a credible individual.
It's been eroded over 17 years, and what we want is for our pay erosion to be reversed. That's all we're asking for. We're asking for the government to come and negotiate, and so far all they've given us is empty
I'm not
promises,
surprised they're not negotiating with you, because you're insane. No, I don't think they should negotiate with you. I think they should fire you, quite frankly. Melissa Ryan, co-chair of BMA's Resident Doctors Committee. She's not a junior doctor anymore. She wants to be called a resident doctor. She won't tell me how much money she makes. She won't tell me whether she was a doctor in 2008. She basically doesn't think anything is relevant other than going on strike, which she says she doesn't want to do. What a complete and utter bloody plank. This is Talk.
We know that the Afghan interpreters stroke Afghan special forces numbered, 1,000 to 1,500 that worked alongside the British forces. And yet we're being told that 18,000 have come in under the cover of darkness. The British people are not stupid. We will always give a safe haven to those that need it. Look how generous the British people have been to the Ukrainians when the war broke out in Europe. It's in our nature to do that.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 8:33. I'm Mike Graham. That was interesting, wasn't it, eh? A junior doctor who doesn't want to tell us how much they make. It's not relevant, even though they're asking for a pay rise, which really is relevant. 0344 499 1000. Carol in Shoreham by Sea says this: Morning, Mike. I must confess I'm feeling totally despondent, depressed, dispirited, downtrodden and disgusted to see my once brilliant country being destroyed in this disgraceful way by a bunch of complete incompetence. It seems as if we have been saying the same thing over and over again for years, while unbelievably things just get worse and worse and worse. Have a great day. I'll tell you what, a man that believes in absolutely everything you've just said there is Jack Elsom, political editor of The Sun. He's got a page 10 piece this morning in the paper saying how the growing rage over migration is killing Keir Starmer. Cast your mind back to Christmas 2018 when a few dozen migrants clambered into rickety dinghies off the French coast and headed for Britain. And that was when Sajid Javid was the Home Secretary. Jack, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
I've just had a little robust, lively conversation with a junior doctor who didn't want to tell me how much he made. I mean, you know, what's going on with these people? You know, we are in a sort of a death spiral with this government. Not only is, as your piece says, the growing rage over migration killing Keir Starmer, but so are the unions, and so is the junior doctor strike going to really, really hit him hard, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think that both of these stories, the junior doctor strikes and the growing row over migration, I think just feeds into this idea now, which is a mainstay of British politics, that British people are just being taken for absolute fools.
Yeah.
And, you know, you had that row with the junior doctor on the picket line, couldn't tell you how much she earned. I think that goes to the heart of the fact that they don't know how much money this is going to cost them. And the answer is a bloody lot, because a 29% pay rise, clearly unaffordable. Why do junior doctors? I don't think anyone would argue the fact that they work hard, apart from today when they're out in the sunshine. But they, you know, why are they deserving of a 29% pay rise more than someone who's, you know, laying cable at Waterloo Station at 3 in the morning? Everyone at the moment is feeling the pinch. And I think that the public are absolutely fed up, and the polling bears that out. The public, I think, once were on the side of doctors, but over 2 years of industrial action in the NHS, their patience is absolutely snapped. And I think that the junior doctors need to be now incredibly careful, not only that they're causing just major disruption in the NHS, which is already incredibly stretched, but also they are losing the public support. And if the public loses support of doctors, then we're in a very bad way.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. But meanwhile, you know, Keir Starmer seems to be in hiding once again. You know, he's hiding behind this state visit from Narendra Modi, the Indian Prime Minister, who turned up a couple of days ago, announcing, you know, a great big trade deal, which appears to do nothing but really help Indian workers and Indian companies who want to come to this country and get preferential rates on tax and preferential rates on national insurance. Meanwhile, you know, the state of the union, as it were, in America, as they call it, is all happening in Epping. And, you know, I spoke to somebody down there a few days ago, a mother who was one of the peaceful demonstrators, and I said, you know, what's your message to Keir Starmer? And she said, just come down and see us, you know, send Yvette Cooper, or you come down and see us, so you can understand what we're upset about, what the problem is. Last night the council voted to basically to remove all the migrants from the hotel and to shut the hotel down. They haven't got the power to do it. The government does. But this is a real problem, isn't it, for Starmer?
Yeah, totally. And it's a problem because it's just so visible. You know, especially small town communities have seen a hotel, which might have been the mainstay of their community. They might have had weddings there. They might go there for Sunday lunch. And they've seen it taken over by the Home Office to house asylum seekers who get everything handed to them on a plate, free bed and board, taxpayer-funded credit cards where they can go out and spend their money. And people are actually fed up with it. You know, you said just then, you referenced my piece about how the first few boats came over in 2018 and Sajid Javid cut short his holiday, flew back and said, we're going to get a grip of this. MPs demanded the Royal Navy was sent in and the public demanded action. Ministers said they would get a handle of it. And 7 years down the line, 170,000 more migrants have come across. We have tens of thousands of people still in taxpayer-funded hotels. And I think that we are now just slowly waking up to the insanity of this situation. Nobody ever asked for it. In fact, in successive general elections, the public have said that they want to get a grip of this. And I think that the patience has snapped. I would say this time, I think that it is slowly dawning on Keir Starmer that if he does not get to grips with the small boats crisis, if he does not get to grips with the ballooning number of people in hotels, then he is going to be in serious trouble at the next election, and it is only going to feed into the hands of Nigel Farage, who is currently laughing all the way to the ballot box.
Yeah, of course he is.
With this.
And I mean, as if he didn't need any more problems, Jeremy Corbyn is kind of looming in the background, as if he's a spectre at the feast, isn't he? Because despite the fact that you and I would probably be laughing at the idea of Jeremy Corbyn making some kind of comeback, it looks as though on the polling front, if this party does take off, and they don't seem to even have a name for it yet, but if it does take off properly, they could nick half of Labour's vote.
Well, I think you're right, and yesterday's launch, if you can call it that, was clearly an absolute shambles. They couldn't decide a name, and Zara Zoltana was furiously tweeting away at anyone suggesting that it was called Your Party, which I think, by the way, Mike, for you, would be an absolute disaster. Imagine as a broadcaster, which party are you going to vote for this election? Your Party.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
I know.
But on a serious point, you're right. I think they do have power to inflict some damage and to hoover up some of the left-wing flanks of the Labour vote. Although, to be honest, I think that in modern politics, you really do need professionalism. You need lots of data. Whether they can harness that or not, I think remains to be seen. But, think about the last election. We did actually have 4 or 5 Gaza independents who managed to take seats off Labour in a pretty astonishing way, because a lot of communities now increasingly vote down sectarian lines, and the Gaza issue is clearly not going away.
No,
it is still very prominent, and because of the situation unfolding there. And so you're right. In 4 years' time, if it is still as damaging to Labour as it is today, then I'm not saying that Jeremy Corbyn's on the way to becoming Prime Minister. In fact, I'd be surprised if he won a handful of seats apart from his own. But what you would likely get is a splitting of the Labour vote. And I think at the moment, Labour are banking on the fact that Reform and the Tories will split the centre-right vote. If their votes split as well, then, it's anyone's game, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And the other thing in the background as well, of course, is the weakness of the Prime Minister and his power over his own backbenchers, because I hear whenever I talk to anybody down in the Westminster sort of bubble that they're all starting to ask how much longer can they put up with him? How much longer can he last? And can they get him out, before the end of the year?
Yeah, I don't think that Keir Starmer's going anywhere for the time being. I think when push comes to shove, these Labour MPs would fall into line if he came from a position of strength. I think the problem is the whole time is that at the first sign of trouble, he has seemed to cave. And when he has tried to demonstrate strength and flex his muscles, it's been in quite a bizarre way. So the welfare rebellion, clearly the best example of that. 100 MPs said they were going to rebel. Keir Starmer then caved. A few more then said they were going to rebel anyway. Keir Starmer then caved. And then a week after the fact, he suspended 4 MPs, seemingly totally at random. And it was just quite an odd show of strength. And I think that many people actually who are Keir Starmer loyalists have been imploring him to go much further. Strip the whip from the lot of them. Tell them that you either get on board or you don't, because something as important as welfare, for example, is not just welfare. There's lots of things which there's been grumblings and sort of rumblings of mutiny. But it's clearly such an important issue. £5 billion of savings for a welfare sickness benefits bill that's going to be going up, as we've talked on this show, to £100 billion by 2030. It's a drop in the ocean, and they can't even do that. And so there is going to have to be serious change. And at some point, Keir Starmer is going to have to lance the boil and actually do things which some of the left-wingers on his backbenches might find unpopular and unpalatable, because it's in the country's interest.
Yeah, well, one of the things, as your front page suggests today, is to solve the ghastly situation with shoplifting. You've got an incredible exclusive this morning with people living for free in a migrant hotel in North London, waking up every day and coming into the West End just to basically rob and steal and shoplift into very expensive shops. And apparently the thing that really amazes me, and people have been surprised by this, is that because they're not identifiable, they have no fixed abode, they have no real identity papers, they can't actually be arrested.
Yeah, and the security staff are getting absolutely sick of it, because they're the ones that look like idiots, because they apprehend someone and the police come along and say, oh, there's not much we can really do with them, and so they're back the next day. And so a whistleblower has come to the Sun, talked about this. We've then seen it in action for ourselves. And again, it is one of these things that is shocking and it is scandalous, but almost like the gambling story the other day, what is almost more depressing is that it's not even surprising anymore. People just assume these things are going to happen because of the state that the country is in. But it obviously is not tolerable in any given sense. The fact that asylum seekers are going in the West End and essentially looting top brand shops is an absolute disgrace. And once again, the Sun is shining a light on it, and hopefully, a bit like the illegal working, Keir Starmer will do something about it, because the country won't tolerate it for much longer.
No, exactly right. Jack, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Great column in the paper today. Jack Elsom on page 10, the headline saying how the growing rage over migration is killing Keir Starmer. We're going to talk coming up to Peter Lloyd, journalist and Sunday Times best-selling author. He's just done a report for the New Culture Forum on the problems in Liverpool, problems that we are obviously making for our society in and of itself. It's a very, very interesting look at what is going wrong in our inner cities. This from Deborah, who says, my mum is 85 and I've been at A&E twice in 4 days as she is struggling to breathe. I had 3 appointments for her for tests today, and yesterday by phone all 3 have been cancelled. She's struggling to breathe, and all I got told was, if it gets worse, go to A&E, which I have done twice, Saturday and Tuesday. Each time I spent 9 hours on Tuesday and Saturday 7 hours. So where are the picket lines? Yeah, I mean, this is the problem, isn't it? Morning, Mike. In the past, and I'm getting on a bit now, I've looked at certain politicians and thought, I really don't like you, and I don't agree with your policies, but now it's gone far beyond not liking them now. I genuinely hate this lot with a passion. Starmer, Miliband, Lammy, Khan, the list goes on, Mike. And as I said, I've never felt like this before. I'm willing to bet I'm not alone. Great show, says Brian from Worthing. Let's get a voice note from, I'm not sure who, but go ahead.
Mike Leighton here from Warsaw. Just listening to your interview with a junior doctor woman always amazes me. How can people who have to be quite intelligent always seem so completely thick?
I know, it's a good question, isn't it? I've had lawyers on, doctors, you know, supposedly scientists, people who are supposed to be intelligent, and you just go, what is wrong with you? Absolutely ridiculous. Melvin said that interview with the junior doctor just now was not just a car crash, but an enormous explosion. I don't understand what's wrong with these people. Do they really think that we're that stupid that we can only talk about how much you get paid by the hour? It's clearly a ridiculous and utterly a sort of obfuscation of the truth. Just tell us what your salary is and tell us what you want it to be. You know, if you make 70 grand, just tell us. We worked out if she makes whatever it says, as she said she was making, what, £18 an hour, and the number of hours she was doing would apparently make it possible for her to make £70,000 or £80,000 a year. Not a bad salary, but just be honest about it. Just say, look, I make 80 grand, I think I should make 90. Or I make 80 grand, I need a 20% pay rise, that would give me 100 grand. You know, just tell it the way it is. And then people will maybe come onto your side. But at the moment, I think the public are very much against giving these bozos any more money at all. 0344 499 1000 is the number. Peter Lloyd's coming next.
There is absolutely no excuse on this earth for why we are where we are 1 year into more than a year into a new government. This administration had plenty of time to prepare proper solutions to stop the boats. What's happened, in fact, as everybody knows, is that there's been a multiplier. Instead of stopping the boats, even more than ever are coming over. And for the government now to say, oh gosh, you know, things are looking a little bit hairy.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 8:49. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. Let's get a voice note from Matt.
Matt in Brighton here. Great interview there with the junior doctor, or should we just call her an imbecile doctor? She came across like an absolute moron. So she let slip that she works between 40 and 72 hours a week. So let's just go in the middle, shall we? 56. 56 times 21 times 52. 61,150 quid a year. So she's over 60k a year. No wonder, and that's an average of what she said. She probably earns more than that. No wonder she didn't want to say it. What an absolute idiot.
Yeah, I'm afraid that's true. This from Paul in Hartlepool. Well done, Mike. This is not the first time you've asked how much these people are paid with no answer. And you can clearly see she wasn't a junior doctor in 2008. Why then does she want the same level of pay that she wasn't getting at the time? Got no sympathy for them at all. Simon in Essex says, for their pay not to have been eroded, it is to go up at the same rate as everybody else's, not whichever favourable inflation rate they're using. Yeah, I mean, that's the problem, because they are using an outmoded measurement of inflation, the retail price index, which nobody else uses. So there's all sorts of problems with this strike, and people aren't buying it. It's simple as that. Let's talk to Peter Lloyd now, journalist and Sunday Times best-selling author. He's just done a report for the New Culture Forum on the decline of Liverpool. And I'm going to just play you a little clip before we speak to him. This is all about immigration, it's all about Islam, and it's all about asylum as well. Have a look.
But as I stand here today, the city is changing because the people are changing. In less than a decade, the population has been transformed through mass migration, creating some of the biggest demographic shifts in the UK.
And as we said with Jack Elson, the growing rage over migration is killing Keir Starmer and killing his Labour government. Very good morning to you, Peter.
Good morning, Mike. Thank you so much for having me on.
Not at all. Good to talk to you. I mean, I used to have this conversation with people, you know, years ago when I would tell, you know, political pundits, you know, the biggest issue in this country is migration. People talk to me about it all the time. Immigration is a real worry, particularly in the inner cities of this country. And the politicians and some of the political pundits didn't want to hear it. They were like, oh, no, it's much more about the economy. It's much more about health. It's much more about wealth. And I was like, no, it's about immigration. Finally, now everybody seems to have agreed and caught up that actually immigration is the key now mover of every single conversation in this country.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think you were right from the very beginning. Migration, specifically illegal migration, is a bigger national emergency in this country than COVID.
Yeah.
I am 100% serious. It is a serious risk of breaking our infrastructure. It is at serious risk of causing a complete breakdown of the social contract. And as you noted with the other story about the shoplifting sprees, it's also causing disorder on the streets, and the police cannot cope. And absolutely, migration is the central issue with all of these problems.
Yeah, absolutely right. So in your particular report that you've done about Liverpool, tell us how Liverpool has changed then in terms of what you've seen over the past, what, I don't know, 5 years or so?
So I am from Liverpool originally, but I've lived in London for the past 20 years, behind enemy lines, you might like to say. And I always loved going back to Liverpool, partly because it was never culturally enriched. You know, it was always just Liverpudlian, and the people there were Liverpudlians, and I didn't have to deal with, you know, Welsh choir boys and doctors and engineers.
Right.
And over the last couple of years, every time I've gone back, I've noticed an almost secret population explosion.
Yeah.
And, first I felt it on like a visceral level. And then when I journalistically looked into the data, it was absolutely staggering. 20 years ago, the white British population of Liverpool was 97%. Now, 77%. 20 years ago, there were 5,000 Muslims in Liverpool, once the Catholic capital of the country. Now, 30,000 Muslims. The black population in Liverpool has increased by 157%. None of this has happened organically. It's all happened because the Home Office designated Liverpool a dispersal area, aka a dumping ground for people who've broken into the country. And the locals in Liverpool, it's a small city, it can't absorb the numbers that London can. And it's struggling, you can see it's struggling. And there's some excerpts in the film, which I hope people watch, where, you see women and children having to confront migrant men who are assaulting them. I mean, it's horrifying. And yet there seems to be this media blackout when it comes to the local press in Liverpool.
Yeah, but that's the problem. A lot of the media is complicit in this kind of, as you call it, secret migration that's going on, because they don't want to talk about it. They feel squeamish about it. They don't like to actually have to admit that some people who come from foreign countries are not very nice. Because they've got this kind of embedded view that everybody who's a foreigner is brilliant and fantastic, and it adds to the rich mix of the cultural, heritage that we want to change. And it's all complete BS, frankly, because we can see it, in every single part of the country now. There's sex attacks going on in Bournemouth, in the West Country. We've got a sex attack that's going on in Epping, which is why there's a huge complaint going on there. In every single place where there's migrant hotels, there's crime, and why can't people just admit that?
Well, as part of the analysis for the film, I looked at the rape and sexual assault incident rates in Liverpool, and a couple of years ago there was about 2,500 sexual assault or rapes every year. Now, after mass immigration, it's almost doubled, Mike. It's almost doubled. And yet the local media, the police, Liverpool City Council, they're all very reticent to join the dots. Because if they do, their whole ideological outlook collapses, and they're going to have to admit there's a problem, and they don't want to do that. They're all in denial.
Yeah. And do you think that's what Starmer's problem is that in his head, deep down, he is, because he's got a human rights background, he's a lawyer, he doesn't really want to admit what's before his very eyes, which is the country is collapsing under the weight of all this horrid, ghastly importation of crime.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like many people, he pinned his life, his career, his reputation on a Marxist ideology, and that is collapsing in front of his eyes, and he's in denial. And what I will say is that Liverpool's gone through a similar thing. Liverpool used to actually be a city that voted Conservative many, many decades ago. Then it swung to the left when it went through a depressed period. And while this film is obviously specific to Liverpool, everybody will be able to relate to it, because it's not just the story of Liverpool, it's the story of every city in the country, every town and village. This is a national emergency, and if we don't get a grip on it in the next 20 years, we are doomed.
Yeah. And what's the answer then? I mean, is the answer to root and branch just kind of go back in and go, sorry, you and you're out, you're going? I mean, how do we do it?
Well, I say this in the film, the first thing we need to do is to spread awareness amongst fellow people. So please watch the video, please share it. Secondly, we need to clamp down the numbers. We need to get the numbers right down. We need to have zero migration. Thirdly, we need to lean in to remigration. This is nothing new. It's not even controversial. The Labour government were deporting tens of thousands of illegal migrants every year. Even liberal Sweden is offering money for migrants who failed to assimilate to go back to their homelands. It's not unreasonable, and I think that is the only way that we are going to solve this problem, because not all migrants commit crimes, of course, but many of them have no desire to assimilate, and when that happens, the fabric of society breaks down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even this week we had the cabinet themselves talking about the worry that that Britain was fraying at the edges. You know, they've almost recognised it. They get the fact that they've missed it, and they get the fact that something has to be done. But I'm not sure they know what to do.
Well, exactly. I mean, you only have to look at what happened in Epping to see, really. I mean, that is a metaphor. That's representative of the entire country.
Yeah.
No one knew how to manage that situation. The council kind of caved in and said, OK, we're going to close this hotel because we don't know what to do. The police are busting in agent provocateur counter-protesters. It was a complete mess. The people in power have no idea how to manage the mess that we're in. And it's like a tinderbox. And that's really why I wanted to make the film, because people need to be aware of the reality that they're living in.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, this isn't a great film. It's on YouTube, Peter. We can send people there and we'll get it out there and get lots of people to watch it. Thank you very much indeed. Peter Lloyd, journalist and Sunday Times best-selling author on the decline of Liverpool. But it could be any city in this country, because every city is suffering in the same way. What a car crash interview with that doctor, says Gary. The reason that none of them would ever show their payslip is because, like so many other public sector workers, their salary is supplemented by all sorts of allowances and special payments negotiated by their unions over the years that hugely increase their take-home pay over and above their headline salary. Yeah, well, let's not mention the pension scenario as well, that an awful lot of junior doctors get their hands on as well, because it's a massively well-constituted pension contributed to in large part by their employer, which is basically you and I. That's the point. 0344 499 1000. Coming up in the next hour, Marco Longhi joins us, Reform UK defector and former Conservative MP. This is Talk. We'll be back after the news.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, coming up to 3 minutes past 9. We're in the final hour already. It's Friday, the 26th of July, 25th of July, I should say. Absolutely extraordinary. I don't know where the time goes. We've had a very, very lively show, though, this morning. We'll be telling you exactly what's been happening very, very shortly, coming up. In this hour, Marco Longi's going to join us, Reform UK defector and former Conservative MP. We're going to speak to Rob Hosking as well, former police officer, about what's been going on in Epping, where basically the local residents have been basically out and about every single day, trying to convince the council that they don't want a migrant hotel in close proximity to a secondary school. They don't want migrants walking around the streets committing crime. They certainly don't want migrants walking around the streets committing sexual assaults, which one of them is accused of doing. And they certainly don't want the Home Office to do anything further to create more tension in the town. The police were out in force last night. They said just this week that everybody's got the right to assemble, that everybody's got the right to demonstrate, and that's why they supposedly shipped in a load of lefty agitators earlier in the week. It now turns out they didn't believe that that was a good idea because they've actually stopped that from happening, and no lefty agitators made it in last night, believe it or not. And thankfully there was a very peaceful protest which ended up in the council outside as a meeting was going on inside to discuss whether or not to shut down the Bell Hotel, and the answer was yes. I think what we should do is get all the migrants out of the Bell Hotel and move them somewhere else. Unfortunately, the decision can't be made by the local council, ridiculously. It has to be made by the Home Office, and the Home Office is now going to come under intense pressure to get rid of these people in the migrant hotel. Let's get a voice note from Claire.
Morning, Mike. Claire from Worcestershire. I'm a regular contributor on your show via text messages in. Every morning I listen to you. A lot of my clients, we have regular conversations about the state of our country, and now that you can't actually prosecute the migrants because they don't have, quote, a fixed abode is absolutely ridiculous. I'll tell you what address that any police officer or any police force can use, and that'll be 10 Downing Street. That's their address for reference. Do that and then prosecute and then get rid.
Claire, very well said. Thank you very much indeed. She's talking, of course, about the Sun front page this morning. We'll be talking to one of the people that put it together later on. Migrant gangs with free hotel rooms shoplift from top stores. It says taking a liberty. Basically, these people wake up in the morning, they're in a free hotel, paid for by us. They get free food, paid for by us. They get free credit cards, paid for by us. They get free travel, paid for by us. And what do? They go down into central London and they basically shoplift from top shops like Gucci, like Prada, like John Lewis, Selfridges and Liberties. And they make a complete and utter killing on nicking loads and loads of expensive stuff and then flogging it to their mates, or flogging it on eBay or whatever it is that they do. But they can't be arrested because they don't have a home address and nobody knows who they are. That's where we are. This is ridiculous. 0344 499 1000 is the number. This is Morning Glory. We'll talk some more about the travel chaos that's happening this weekend and, of course, the junior doctor strike, which got underway just about 2 hours ago. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Sue says this: doctors should not become doctors if they are only interested in the money. Medicine is or should be a vocation. The advanced salary only comes with experience, and that trainee would have been on a minimum of £40,000 for a 5-day week. Well, we've worked out that woman who's called Melissa Ryan, she's co-chair of the BMA's Resident Doctors Committee, is probably on somewhere between £70,000 and £80,000. Morning, Mike, says Rain in Lincolnshire. Your junior doctor issue, I watch your channel because you simply cannot get any other channel to tell these idiots what most decent people are feeling. I love watching you rip into these muppets. Well, I love doing it, to be honest, Rain. Let's have a little replay, shall we? This is me and Melissa Ryan having a bit of a punch-up. You always talk about pounds per hour. How much do you actually get paid per year? What's your annual salary?
So if you start off in the first year, you're roughly on
No, I'm asking about your salary. No, I'm asking your salary. What's your salary?
So my salary depends on how many hours I do overnight.
How much did you make?
Pounds per hour, which is about £21 per hour.
Well, I don't know how many hours you work. What's your annual salary, please?
So my annual salary is eroded by 21% on since 2008, like every single resident doctor here.
I'm looking for a number.
And all we want is for our pay to be restored.
No, I'm looking for a number. Can you not just tell me how much your salary is? Like, how much did you get paid last year?
As I said my salary is eroded 21%. I'm not here to talk about my salary. I'm
No,
here to
well,
talk
you
about
are, no,
all
you're
resident
asking. No,
doctors
you're asking
and
for
how their
taxpayers. No,
pay
hang on.
is
You're
eroded.
asking. No, Melissa, you're asking for taxpayers to fund your work, right? Because you work for the public sector, you work for the NHS, so basically taxpayers fund your salary. So I think we're entitled to know how much you get paid.
I get paid £21 an hour, and that is 21% eroded
salary?
on my pay from 2008.
All right. Where were you a doctor in 2008?
Why are you asking me that?
How is that relevant?
Well, because you say you want the pay restored to 2008 levels, but I don't believe you were a doctor in 2008. Were you?
So 2008 is when austerity came in line, is when our pay started being
Were you a
eroded
doctor in
against
2008?
inflation.
Were you a doctor
We've had
in 2008?
17 years of pay erosion. And
Were
that's
you
what
were
we're
you a
asking for,
doctor in
asking for that pay
2008?
erosion to be reversed. It's not relevant about
It is.
what happens with doctors
You're
when
asking
they
to
come
have
in.
your
It's a
pay
very
restored
long
to a time when you were a
training
child.
program.
How about you get restored? You get your pocket money in 2008. How much was that? I mean, you know, you're just not a credible
It's been
individual.
eroded over 17 years, and what we want is for our pay erosion to be reversed. That's all we're asking for. We're asking for the government to come and negotiate, and so far all they've given us
Yeah,
is
well,
empty
I'm not
promises,
surprised they're not negotiating
and
with you because you're
that's it.
insane. No, I don't think they should negotiate with you. I think they should fire you, quite frankly. I mean, I can't disagree with any of that, to be honest. I mean, I said it, and of course I agree with it. Let's talk to Marco Longhi, Reform UK. Used to be a former Conservative MP, of course. Marco, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Mike.
I mean, these people have got some nerve, haven't they? You know, this woman wants to have her salary increased by 29%, but she refuses to say what her salary is. She expects taxpayers to fund it. She won't tell us what she did in 2008, which she says she wants, you know, her pay parity to be. You know, they're having a laugh, aren't they?
Of course. And of course, the reason why they are doing that is because the government gave in to union pressure last year. I mean, This is no surprise. This was entirely predictable that they were going to do this. When you reward disruptive tactics, you only encourage more of them. And West Streeting is now facing the reality of a health system where expectations have been inflated, but the funding and reforms of the NHS just aren't there to be able to make sure that everything is on a sustainable path. So the message to every union was clear: hold out, strike, and you'll get a deal. But that's not sustainable governance, is it? It's just a recipe for more repeated disruption. And who ends up paying for it? The patient pays for it. The taxpayer pays for it, as they do every single time.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely shameful. But the government, as you say, have let this happen because they rather stupidly fell for the oldest trick in the book, which was that they bought the idea that, you know, if they gave a bucket load of money, 22% last August, I think it was, to the BMA, that they would all go away and play nice. But of course, they've just come back for more because everybody could have told them that they'd do that.
But everybody also knows, Mike, that it's the unions that bankroll the Labour Party. So it's going to be incredibly difficult now for the Labour Party to simply not keep on giving in, because they know that otherwise they're going to hide into nothing from the unions themselves.
Yeah.
We've seen Unite, rumours of Unite, perhaps looking to stop funding the Labour Party and actually back Jeremy Corbyn's party. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Well, I mean, Jeremy Corbyn is putting a massive hole into the Labour Party. I mean, you and I both would be probably quite surprised to know that he had such influence these days, but apparently he does, because there are so many lefties in the Labour Party now still that they'd rather have Jeremy Corbyn at the helm than Keir Starmer. Because everybody, I mean, the one thing that Keir Starmer's managed to do is unite the country in hatred of him.
Yes, that's right. But one more thing about West Streeting. I mean, I read one of the articles he wrote or one of the interviews he gave where he said he now wants the doctors to feel the pain. And I'm just thinking that is really unwise language. I don't want doctors to feel the pain because I know that ultimately if they are inflamed even more and put out to feel the pain, patients will feel it. But what you need is a professional health secretary that gets people out there, does hold out, does make sure that they get value for money for the taxpayer, but hopefully understands that the mistakes of the past, and they must not give in now, I'm afraid.
No, that's the problem. But, I mean, how does it end, though? Because if they don't give them any more money, it's a 5-day strike now. I mean, I seem to remember under the Tories, they were on strike pretty much for almost a year. They were sort of in and out of them, wouldn't they? They would suddenly announce we're going to be off for 5 days here, 3 days there, but it more or less ran for an entire year, which did terrible damage to waiting lists, did terrible damage to the NHS. I mean, this particular stoppage supposedly is going to cost already about 87 million quid, you know. But if the government doesn't have any money, which it doesn't have, you know, how do they solve it?
Well, I'm afraid they're just going to have to take the bitter pill, and doctors are going to have to be told either you come back to work or you might have to be looking for a job elsewhere, and your careers could well be hampered moving forward. It's the sad old adage now, you know, so much damage was done last year. Had they not given in to their every whim last year, there'd have been a better negotiating basis for this year.
Yes, I think that's right. And let's move on to the front page of the Sun this morning, which is the latest twist in the migrant tale. You know, the Reform, of course, have got all sorts of reasons why this is the #1 story at the moment in town. Migrant gangs with free hotel rooms shoplift from top stores. We learned yesterday there's 80,000 migrants who have got a card which they're given, which allows them to spend something like £50 a week. I've worked out that it costs to the Exchequer something like £4 million a week, about 200 million plus a year. We now find out that there's a gang of these characters who stay in a hotel for free in North London. Every morning they wake up, they travel down into the West End, and they basically steal, and they can't be arrested because they can't give any details of who they are.
Mike, this is something that makes me feel ill, honestly.
Yeah.
It sends my blood pressure skyrocketing every time I hear it, and I can't be alone in feeling this way. The country is sick to death of hearing about these stories now, and it is perfectly within the gift of this government, just as it was in the gift of the last Tory government as well, to put this to a stop. We should not have them in hotels. We should have Nightingale-type detention centres, as we did when we built them for the NHS. Obviously, the hospitals, not detention centres. But we can build things very quickly when we want to. They should not be in hotels. They should not be in central London. And, in fact, they should be processed overseas and sent back to France straight away. You know this has been my personal message, even when I was a Conservative, but you know it's the Reform message and always has been. It's absolutely sickening, and this government should actually be held to task now, because since they came to power, it's actually much worse than for as bad as it was during the Tory years.
Yeah, it really is, and somehow it seems to have deteriorated, rather like the state of the nation, rapidly in the last 12 months. You know, since Labour have got in, it seems to have got a lot worse, which can only lead me to believe, and I know that you're not a Tory anymore, but the Rwanda plan possibly would have worked. You know, it was showing signs of degrading to some extent, at least the numbers of people coming over. But now we've got record numbers coming over every single week. Thousands and thousands and thousands will come over the course of the summer. It looks as though probably more than 50,000 will come over the course of the 12 months of 2025. And it's just not sustainable. We can't handle it anymore.
Mike, it's like the drug trade. If there's a lot of money involved, gangsters, criminal leaders will always find a new way, even if the police and enforcement agencies break them temporarily. They will always find a new way. The only way to deal with this is by cutting off demand. Cutting off demand means the migrants themselves don't want to come anymore. And there is only one way to do that. And there must be a very clear message going out there. Come to the UK illegally, you will be detained, you will be removed immediately, and you will not be considered for asylum in this country. That has to be the message. And the only way you can actually achieve that is by processing their asylum applications overseas. And that's what Rwanda wanted to do. I know Starmer derided it and all the rest of it. He never gave it a chance of working.
Yeah.
Now, quite frankly, I was one of those people, together with Bill Cash and a few other Conservative MPs, who wanted to make the Rwanda bill at the time much, much tighter. Rishi Sunak didn't want to do it. And I think that probably explains the reason why he went for an early election in July, so he didn't see all of the boats coming over through the summer. And I can't explain any other reason why he would have called an election when he did, because he took every single Conservative MP by surprise, aside from those, from his inner circle who were happy to bet on it.
Yes. Well, the other thing, of course, that we wonder whether he was motivated by was the worry about this super injunction on the Afghan refugees who were coming in by the tens of thousands, which he knew was happening, but which very few other people did. And you wonder whether, that was part of his motivation as well.
Parliament is sovereign, Mike, which means that every single MP is protected by law to say anything they want in the chamber. Even the courts cannot overrule that position. So anybody could have said what was going on with this super injunction. And what happened with that super injunction was to keep a secret what was going on behind the general public's view. So billions were being spent. There was a huge cock-up that was made. Nobody has paid the price for it, and everything was hidden from the public. There must be an inquiry into what has happened there. I won't let that go. It's an utter disgrace, and this super injunction, politicians should not hide behind it, because if they felt it was wrong at the time, and if they are saying it is wrong now, they should have spoken up inside that chamber at the time, because that's what gives, it's called parliamentary privilege.
Yes.
And you can only do so in the chamber, and they could have spoken out.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Great to see you again, Marco. Good to hook up again. We'll have to get you on more. Marco Longhi there, Reform UK now, defected from the Tory party, former Conservative MP, of course, as well. Let's get a voice note from Steph.
Morning, Mike. Steph from Surrey. So my two neighbours, one's a consultant, one's a paediatrician. She's on strike and he's filling in. They've just come off their 5th holiday, but they need more money, bless them.
Yeah, bless them. But they won't tell you how much they make. They just tell you how much they make per hour, right? Presumably you'd hire doctors by the hour now, do you? Sue in Frodders in Scotland says, bloody hell, Mike, I felt my blood pressure pumping when you interviewed that smug doctor. The reason she wouldn't tell you her annual salary is because of all the increments they receive. Good for you for not taking it and for speaking out for us. Brilliant job. And one from Jay in West Brom. He says, the government wants the migrants here. Closing the Epping Hotel just moves the problem to another area. We've got 3 migrant hotels within walking distance. We don't want any more. This is the thing. I've just also been given a piece of information from up north in Manchester that basically there's a day of action being planned to close down the Cresta Court Hotel Sunday the 27th of July, 5 p.m. for our children. Peaceful protest, it says, about the immigrants flooding our country and getting 5-star luxury living accommodation paid for by you. This is one of the more recently added hotels. I seem to remember in Altrincham in Manchester, where people were alarmed that suddenly a hotel which had been a relatively, family-friendly place, had been used for years and years and years as a stopping-off point for people who were going out for the night in Manchester, has now been taken over completely as a migrant hotel. So now there's going to be another demonstration, and this means that there's going to be more and more demonstrations up and down the country. I predicted this. I said it would happen. It's not just Epping. Epping was the start of something. It's now going to be going on in Aldershot. It's now going to be going on in Manchester. It's going on down in the West Country, all over the place. Let us know if you know of any other anti-migrant demonstrations that are going to be happening this weekend. It's going to be a very hot weekend, and it's going to be a pretty tasty weekend, I suspect, for Keir Starmer. 0344 499 1000. We're coming up. We're going to speak to a former police officer, Rob Hosking, about the problems that this could create. This is Talk.
Some breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
As something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, does these people who lead us actually hate Britain?
Yeah.
Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham. It's 9:25. I wonder if the doctor knows that many people in ordinary jobs have seen their pay eroded over the last 17 years, says Jeff. Where did the private sector go for restoration? Nowhere. Or find a new job or suck it up. They can't just ask the taxpayer to fix it for them, so why should doctors be any different? And Linda in Deal says, what the hell is wrong with our legal system? These shoplifters won't give police a name or details, so legally they don't exist. So why can't we just get rid of them? We can't have aliens here committing all sorts of heinous crimes. Absolutely right. Let's get a word with Darren, who's got a voice note for us.
Morning, Mike. Darren from Suffolk. Great show. It's interesting to hear you talking about how the people have let this wokeness happen around us. Well, a year ago, as an award-winning mentor for 6 years, having gone to the Buckingham Palace and been won awards for mentoring, I received an email out of the blue thanking me for my service. What happened is I got cancelled. I got cancelled by email, all because a teacher had seen my book and looked online and saw that on my social media, I put the phrase, anyone with pronouns will be blocked. That's it. They didn't like that. Someone may have been offended had they've seen it. No one was offended. Nobody ever mentioned it. The only people to miss out now is the hundreds of kids that I mentored every year. Have a good day.
Wow. That's ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, this is the problem. In education in particular, the wokists have really taken over. But there's some signs of life out there in the unwoke culture. Have a look at this new American Eagle advert. This is, of course, Sydney Sweeney, is it? Doing what she does best, basically, just looking great. Sydney Sweeney has great genes, it says, and she's advertising for the American Eagle brand, but she's driving off in a Mustang. The wheels are turning. It's a petrol car, by the way. It's not a bleeding electric one. And there she is, showing herself off, pressing herself down, and it's a sort of throwback to the 1970s, but apparently it's really going well over in America. People are loving it, bringing sexy back to advertising. You know, why not indeed? Great show as always, says Ian. I think we should say to these doctors that they can have their pay rise, but we are getting rid of their gold-plated final salary pension schemes like happened to most of the private sector around 30 years ago. Yeah, well, that would be nice. A bit of a shock to the system for them, wouldn't it be? And let's talk to Rob Hosking, former police officer and TEDx motivational speaker. Rob, very good morning to you.
Morning, how you doing?
Very well indeed, very well indeed. We seem to be seeing coming up this weekend a sort of a spreading of the discomfort, shall we say, in all sorts of different communities about migrant hotels. We've just heard about a demo that's going to happen in Altrincham in Manchester. There's going to be another one probably in Epping. There's certainly going to be one outside of the Britannia in Canary Wharf. There's likely to be another one, I'm told, down in Aldershot. So, you know, the people are getting pretty worked up about this, aren't they?
Yeah, at the end of the day, it goes back to, I think the fact of the matter is that people do not feel safe.
Yeah.
They haven't felt safe for a long time. Policing standards have decreased year upon year. There's not enough numbers on the street. You don't see your local Bobby on the street actually protecting the streets, walking the beat. That doesn't happen anymore. So as the years go on, people feel less safe. So of course this is going to happen. People don't feel safe in their communities, which is an absolute disgrace.
Yeah, it really is. And the government doesn't seem to know what to do about it, because last night, for example, in Epping, there was a vote taken in the local council chamber to basically shut down the Bell Hotel and to move all the migrants out. But of course, they don't have the power to do that. So the Home Office has to step in, but the Home Office really doesn't know what to do either, because if they take them out of Epping, they have to put them somewhere else.
Mike, I think that sums up the situation that our country probably finds itself in, that nobody seems to know what to do with anything at the minute. So it's a difficult situation, but it's a difficult situation caused by the government themselves.
Yes.
So they have to sort it out. Policing have to step up, and unfortunately this is the case too, where these kind of things happen. Policing struggles, they have to put their resources in, all because probably the government have let people down, they've let policing down, they've let their communities down. They need to do better, never mind what the police should be doing.
Right, and we were talking earlier to Jack Elsom, the police editor of The Sun, because he's got a piece in the paper today saying the first sort of boat that came across was in 2018. Sajid Javid was then the Home Secretary, and he sort of came back off his holiday to try and sort it all out. Little did they know, I suppose, that it would become such a massive problem, you know, because I think for a long time, a lot of people would say things like, well, you know, it's only a really small number of people coming, it's not really something to worry about. But it's now getting close to 200,000 people that have come since then on by this method, and it's just hopeless, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a difficult situation because, you know, there's people out there who genuinely need asylum, and they are people that, of course, we should be helping whatever way we can, but we need to help our own communities first. And some of the people who are coming over, unfortunately, they've probably got a list of convictions, probably the height of me. So we're bringing over potential criminals who, guess what? They're going to probably commit more crime against British people. And I've seen it in my job as the police officer, where we'd arrest somebody and then we'd have to do what we call the nexus checks, which we check their convictions from where they're originally from. And you see the convictions, and they're serious convictions. And it then begs the question, why have they been allowed in this country with these convictions in the first place?
Well, that's the other thing that I was going to ask you about, knowing your knowledge of being a police officer. You know, the story on the front page of The Sun today, this gang of shoplifters, effectively, who was living in a hotel in North London, somewhere near Wembley, I believe, and they're just waking up in the morning, you know, they've got no worries at all, they don't have to pay the bill, you know, they're getting the hotel for free, and they're just going down into the West End and literally nicking whatever they can get their hands on. You know, whether it's a Gucci bag or a pair of Prada sunglasses, you know, going into John Lewis, into Selfridges, into Liberties. And when they get caught by the security guards, they say the police basically either, one, don't turn up, or if they do, they say, well, we can't really do anything with these people because they're of no fixed abode and they haven't got any ID on them. We don't know who they are, so we can't really do anything. Is that really the case?
Yeah, that's the problem that you find, and I found it working up in Scotland when I worked in Scotland, where the Irish traveller community would maybe come into our community and they'd commit crime, but they wouldn't give you any details, they wouldn't have any ID on them or anything like that. So you're really in a sticky situation where when you don't know these people's information, then there's not actually much you can do. So the police do have handcuffs on themselves in that situation, but you know, we've just said it there with the security guards saying that sometimes the police don't even turn up. And that's the problem. You know, forget about, we can't do anything whenever we don't know the people's information, but, you know, if people aren't even getting a service anymore with the police. So I heard somebody say that with these potential riots and these protests, that some of the police services are going to have to lend resources all around the country, and they just can't cope. At the end of the day, the police can't cope no matter what, so it's an excuse. The police can't cope with what they're doing right now, because what we're seeing in the police force and in the country is that the police services are hiding behind offices. More of them are office-based than actually on the beat, and I'm sure I can probably speak for most people, where I think that people should be on the street, on the beat, protecting people rather than behind the offices.
Yeah, absolutely right. Good to talk to you. Rob Hosking, thank you very much indeed, former police officer and TEDx and motivational speaker. We've got plenty to do here and not that much time to do it in. Morning, Mike, says, Ian, my mother discovered a lump in her breast 4 weeks ago. She's been given 3 appointments, every one cancelled. Great. isn't it? And one here from Joanna in Salisbury. Hi, Mike. Dr. Rayner probably does get about £21 an hour. She doesn't tell you 1, additional pay for unsociable hours, 2, enhancements for where she works, 3, probably only works NHS 3 days a week but will be paid 2 days in private work. I'm guessing she's getting probably over 100,000 a year. Amazing. And Adrian says, simple solution, push through with AI to replace these useless resident doctors. Well, we can see if we can do that. 0344 499 1000 is the number. Just before we go to the next section where we're going to talk to Simon Calder, have a look at Reform Councillor for Ongar, Jamie McIver, on what happened in Epping last night.
I would just like to say that the people of Epping are not zoo animals and they do not need to be locked in cages like they are over there. But as a councillor, I don't mind a small little win, so when I first arrived, there was only one entrance into the zoo animal cage, which has been allocated for protesters. Who on earth made that decision, by the way? There's only one entrance, which meant that women and children had to walk in the main road on rush hour in order to get into their cage. And so, I'm pleased to say that following a conversation with senior police officers, love your hat. Thank you. Following conversations with senior police officers, there are now 2 entrances, so at least women and children don't have to walk into the main road during rush hour. But I would love to understand why people are in a cage. I just find that totally insulting. But well done to the residents that are there. I'm on my way to the council meeting now.
And of course that council meeting was where they decided to actually rid the town of those illegal migrants and to tell the hotel, the Bell Hotel, that they don't want them there anymore. Trouble is, they haven't got the power to move them out. Mike says, Chris, I love the jeans advert, a real car with a real woman with no tattoos. Quite right, well said. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:37. I'm Mike Graham. Mike, closed down the Invader Hotel in Epping is sadly like playing whack-a-mole. They will just pop up somewhere else. The only solution, which is the majority of the country's support, is mass deportation. And Frida from Melksham says the NHS needs to be stripped down from top to bottom. It's so big, nobody has control over it. Bring in Mr Sugar, Branson and Dyson with their teams of successful people. This could stop managers managing managers and duplication. Not all NHS staff are caring people like they used to be. Some staff, as well as public, abuse the service. Yeah, I think that's probably right. It's Gaff Prone Friday, right? Which we haven't done enough of because the show has just been running on gas, quite frankly. Don't tell Ed Miliband. Have a look at Alex Phillips, distracted by a seagull.
So basically, there's bus companies, white seat owners, who rent them out to the military, but generally that's their main job. That's who
Nick, do you have before you carry on, do you have a pet seagull or something, or an eagle? Like, are you some sort of falconer with a bird of prey on your arm? What on earth was that screeching noise?
This is what happens down by the seaside. We have a lot of migrants and a lot of seagulls.
Typical seaside town full of seagulls and migrants. Let's talk to Simon Calder, because he's, of course, the travel guru to the stars. He's also travel correspondent at The Independent. This is a big weekend, Simon. Very good morning to you, because it's the first proper weekend of the school holidays, right? What's going on?
Well, it's the busiest day of the year so far for Britain's airports. There are flights leaving every 26 seconds on average. 556,000 of us will be exported to beautiful places, mainly in the Mediterranean. There's going to be takeoffs and landings as regularly from one runway at Gatwick as every 65 seconds. So that's going to be exciting. Of course, we're seeing queues at airports. Of course, we're seeing train cancellations getting to Gatwick. But for most people, the big problem is going to be air traffic control, because there's chronic staff shortages across Europe. So if you're going, for instance, to the Greek islands, how lovely, there's a very good chance that your flight will get a slot delay. That's okay if it's the first flight of the morning, because it's typically about half an hour. But after that, they build up during the day. So typically, half-hour delay on the first flight. By the time you've got the last flight of the day, people are running kind of 2 hours late. So if you're only an hour late wherever you're going, I'd take that as a win.
Absolutely right. And I'm looking at your Twitter this morning. It says Hull Trains has cancelled 30% of trains serving London today due to a strike by train drivers. I don't know if that's ASLEF train drivers. I guess it would be. And Great Western Railway, which obviously serves destinations in the west of England, is going to cancel some trains on Sunday because of a staff shortage. Interesting that they know there's going to be a staff shortage 2 days in advance.
Well, there's lots of very archaic working arrangements, as we've talked about on the railways and at GWR. Some of the staff have Sundays in their working week. Others, it's purely voluntary overtime. And they've clearly had a look and thought, oh, we don't have enough volunteers, so therefore we're going to have to be cancelling some trains. I think a lot of people would find it quite surprising when the government has vowed to get the railways back on track, that this can happen. There's also probably going to be some problems on cross-country trains. They've been having pretty miserable time at weekends. So wherever you're going, do check in advance. But it's probably might going to be better than the roads. Today is Frantic Friday. I'm calling tomorrow slow down Saturday, and then sclerotic Sunday. Saturday looks as though it's going to be the worst, mostly between about 10 in the morning and 5 in the afternoon.
I was hoping to get away from London this afternoon down to Sussex. So are you telling me that I'm going to be stuck in traffic for ages?
Yes, I mean, I would say take the train, but there's a points failure at Haywards Heath, of course. So that might be fixed by
but I can't take the train because I can't get the dog in the train when I take him to the beach. So that's why I've got a car.
Right.
You know,
okay.
So you know, I have a car out of necessity. Because, and also I quite like driving. I don't like sitting on a train with loads of other people unless I absolutely have to. I took a train yesterday, which remarkably was on time, clean, very, very good. I was down in Maidstone, went to see James Whale, who's not very well at the moment, who's down there being looked after by some very lovely people in a medical scenario. I took a train from Maidstone East, left on time, got to London Bridge inside of an hour, which was absolutely brilliant.
Well, meanwhile, there were massive delays on the West Coast Main Line. That was actually a trespasser in west of Nuneaton who was apparently armed. So they turned up all the power, and trains running up to 3 hours late. But that's I'm afraid that's just one of those awful things. Are
you going away anywhere in the next couple of days, or?
Well, I've got a flight which I'm hoping to hop on at 1:30, heading off to Istanbul.
Oh, very nice.
I'm not actually booked on it, but I'm hoping I can find a workaround.
Oh, what, are you hoping for a sort of standby scenario?
Yeah, so I've got a ticket for a later flight, but given that everything's getting later and later and later, I'd rather get on an earlier flight. So I'll let you know how that one goes. Just also the ferries, long delays we saw yesterday at Dover, because of course you've got to go through French passport control, waiting up to an hour there. Today's going to be even busier, as is tomorrow, and basically the boss is saying don't get there early, because it's not like an airport where you've got, I was going to say lovely places, okay places to sit around and drink coffee and go shopping. It's not like that. Dover is just about sending people through onto boats. And if everybody turns up 3 hours early, then suddenly the whole place is going to go into gridlock, which won't be nice for you or the people of Dover or everybody else who's stuck behind you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, all we can do is wish everybody well with whatever travels you're going on. Have a lovely time in Istanbul, and we'll perhaps talk to you on the other side next week. Simon Calder, thank you very much indeed. Travel correspondent from The Independent. He's got such a glamorous job. He's always going somewhere cool. Marge says this, Mike, you have been given different info. I've nicked people with no fixed address for minor offences. Theft is a criminal offence, and this gives you the power to arrest and detain for interview, and where there is enough evidence, the CPS will charge. That person gets fingerprinted, DNA, mouth swabbed and photographed. If NFA, no fixed address, they are kept in custody and taken to a magistrate's court the next day. Things have certainly changed. Well, this is the problem. I don't think there's anywhere to put them, right? So the police don't lock them up because they can't, and there is no magistrate's court to take them to because it's, I'm afraid, absolutely full up to the gunnels. George says, Mike Graham, let me get this right. If I, as a pensioner, pop up to the West End for a bit of shoplifting, I can get off by just having no ID and saying I'm homeless. What with all the price increases since COVID, it sounds like a plan. Just off to find my old gardening trousers and jumper. I don't want to look too smart. Well, you say that as a joke, George, but you're probably right. Because the chances of you getting picked up by the police for shoplifting are pretty much minimal, and it's probably never going to happen. So if you actually do want to do something like that, which obviously we would not encourage here as responsible broadcasters, I'm afraid you'd probably get away with it. Simple as that. Now, Plank's coming up this week. Of course, it's Friday, so let's have a look at what's coming on. Plank of the week.
Did you sleep with Keir Starmer?
No.
Was it physical?
Yeah.
How far did you go? Did you go past first base?
To be honest, from what I've heard, you wouldn't be his type anyway.
I know, but I did, and it was so weird, because in my dream I just felt so sorry for him and how useless he is that I felt the need to snog him in my dream.
So, gentlemen of the world that are watching Plank of the Week, you now know that the way to Alex Phillips's heart is to make her feel sorry for you and be a complete arse.
Yeah, went a bit off-piste this week, so you can find out what else happened on Plank of the Week coming up at 7 o'clock tonight. Next, we're going to talk to Thomas Godfrey from The Sun about that great splash, the front page story about a gang of migrants who are breaking the law, basically. Every single day, they wake up in a hotel paid for by you and I. They get on the tube, probably don't bother paying for that, and then they go on a shoplifting spree to all the big shops in the West End, and they get away with it because nobody wants to prosecute them because nobody knows who they are. Unbelievable. Also, we'll take a trip down to the picket lines as well and see what some of the posters are saying. This is Talk.
realistic do you think a ceasefire is this week?
There's a very good chance that we'll have a settlement, an agreement of some kind.
We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.
What are you looking for here?
An end. a real end. Well, all of a sudden he's a big shot because he has the U.S. on his side. I am very disappointed with President Putin. He'll talk so beautifully and then he'll bomb people at night.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 9:49. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through for another 10 minutes, basically. Alex Phillips isn't here. It's Jonathan Gullis, I think, who's in for Alex Phillips. Mike, if shoplifters can't be arrested because they have no ID and we don't know who they are, does that apply to someone who commits rape or murder, says Jackie? Well, I don't know. Thomas Godfrey's here from The Sun, and he can probably explain. Thomas, great to see you. Fantastic story on the front page, exclusive by Rachel Dale, about these asylum seekers, this gang of people who apparently work for somebody, presumably some kind of organisation. They wake up every morning, stay free in a hotel in North London, jump on the tube, don't pay to get through the barriers, and then just go on a shoplifting spree every single day.
Well, it was 15 stores in 5 hours that were hit in central London.
Right, and you guys followed them, right?
We did, yeah. We saw them get on the tube, push through the barriers, so fare evasion, if you want that onto the list, waltz into central London, take whatever they want with no one being able to stop them, push back through the barriers, back onto the tube, and back to a Holiday Inn in Wembley.
Astonishing.
It is astonishing, absolutely. And you think, you know, shoplifting is at a record high, new statistics showed yesterday. And there are a lot of hard-working people in this country struggling to make ends meet, struggling with the cost of living.
Right.
And they're the ones who will be absolutely outraged at it is taking a liberty from the luxury of a taxpayer-funded hotel, using the tube for free, dodging the fares, and then stealing stuff probably worth hundreds of pounds from some of our flagship stores, which should be the sort of things attracting tourists to this country who want to spend money.
And this comes on the back of news today that shoplifting offences were recorded in 2024-25 as a record number, 20% increase from the previous year, 530,643 offences. I mean, more than 500,000. And you'd have to say, fuelled, presumably, by these kind of criminal gangs who are pretty well organised about doing it.
Well, it's 1,400 a day shoplifting offences are recorded, and so many of them are being put together by organised gangs. And we don't know if these people are an organised gang, but we do know they're working hand in hand because they were sharing around one foil bag that was used to get out of some of these stores.
And does that mean that if something's in a foil bag, it can't be detected?
It will avoid the sensor. It's a trick that's been used for a very long time by organised gangs. And it means that you can get through the sensors, and the only way then to stop them is to have extra security guards. But I mean, security guards can't really detain people. You can't get physical with people, because then they'll have a case against you.
Well, exactly. And also, if there's, say, 5 or 6 of them, which it sounds like there are, even in the story it says a couple of them get detained, but the others get away. Yeah. And so, you know, they maybe don't all get out of the shop, but most of them do.
And I mean, without ID cards, as you mentioned, these security people don't know who they are. Right. And if the police don't get there in time or simply don't respond, because there is so much shoplifting, and the police now, we know, aren't responding to every single call from shoplifters, especially in central London, where it's going on every second, basically. Right. Then, I mean, what are you meant to do? You basically have to let them go. Yeah. And it's a huge problem. And the people who have exposed this to us are security workers who are concerned not only about the level of crime, but also about their safety. Because all it takes is one of these shoplifters to be carrying a weapon, as so many people do in London, or to get violent. And suddenly this is not just a story about shoplifting, but it's a story potentially about someone's life being at risk.
Of course. And one of the things I notice now more and more when I go to places in the West End, they've got security on the door. Sometimes they're now locking the door. So if you want to go into the shop, you actually have to knock on the door, and you go into kind of a... I know a lot of the watch shops have got this. You go into a kind of a holding area, and then you wait behind another door, and they've got to have these ridiculous security measures because so much nicking is going on.
It's a theme, isn't it? You know, we're supposed to be a high trust society.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be the type of country where you can have an honesty box and people will actually put the money in before they take an egg or whatever. And yet more and more we're seeing shops, even Tesco now, have a system, some branches, where you have to wait for a green light to come on for someone inside to let you in, because so many people were going in masks and balaclavas and just simply taking stuff and running away.
It is awful,
and it just shows the extent to which some stores are having to go to. And Oxford Street, you know, as I said, it is one of the things that pulls people to this country. People want to go shopping there. They want to go and look at the designer outlets, the John Lewis's, the big department stores,
is there
the
as
massive
well.
flagships that you know, Britain should be proud of, and London especially should be proud of. And they're being raided and ruined for many people by thugs like this, who are orchestrating what look like organised campaigns to just go and nick as many things as they possibly can.
And because they're migrants, of course, it feeds once again into the narrative where people are so fed up, you know, from Epping to Altrincham in Manchester, down to Aldershot. There's going to be demos probably in Canary Wharf this weekend, you know, where all these migrant hotels are. It's becoming a real thing where ordinary people are going, we've had enough of this. You know, these people are living here, they're taking a mickey out of us, you know, they're getting everything for free. We found out yesterday they're getting, you know, credit cards practically to spend on gambling, whatever they want to do. And now we learn this great story in the Sun today, that they're just shoplifting. I mean, it's just ridiculous. We've literally imported a criminal enterprise, you know, times a million.
Well, I think, and the thing is, there's no way of vetting who's coming in, and we saw that with the people who are charged with targeting the Israeli embassy. There's no way of vetting how these people have come into the country or who they are. And a lot of people will throw any documents they have into the channel on their way over to avoid being identified.
Is there any clue as to where these people are from? Or is it difficult to know?
It's very difficult to know because a lot of them don't have ID. And then when the police do come, the most sort of power they have at their disposal is to issue a sort of community order, some sort of dispersal order. And all that does, of course, is just kicks the can down the road. It maybe moves them to another postcode where they can then launch the same sort of shoplifting sprees.
Because one of the things that a lot of people have picked up on is the fact that, you know, they can't really be held and arrested because nobody knows who they are. They have no ID, they have no sort of fixed abode that we know of, which seems extraordinary, doesn't it? Because surely the police have got the powers, if they want them, to hold anyone.
Well, for more serious offences, the police will hold, will charge, will sort of basically do what they would do with anyone else with asylum seekers. We did an investigation last week that showed from about half of the migrant hotels in this country, more than 300 offences have been recorded and people have been charged and appeared in court because of it. It is more difficult with shoplifting because, I mean, anyone basically, if it's under £200 was the loophole basically. The police wouldn't prosecute. That's something Labour promised to revoke. We have seen some asylum seekers living in these hotels appear in court charged with shoplifting. It does happen. But in the vast majority of cases, you have to think it simply isn't because we don't have the resources. It's not worth their while. And we don't have the resources. But increasingly, what is concerning is that people living in these taxpayer-funded hotels, as we demonstrate today, are organising themselves into units to commit crime, and that is new. That is more new than you know, the odd shoplifter, the odd which you're bound to get in any group in society, of course. But this is different. This is
proper
organised.
criminal enterprise. Yeah, absolutely. It's extraordinary. Great story. Absolutely brilliant. We've got hardly any time left. We're just going to got a couple of quick things to do before we say cheerio to Thomas. Thank you very much indeed. We've been looking at the picket line down at St Thomas's Hospital, and we've picked this up. One of the strikers has been spotted holding a poster, and if you look closely as we zoom into it, it doesn't just say, you know, pay us some more money. It says defend refugees, stop the far right in Epping, and no to fascist Tommy Robinson. which doesn't really seem to have much to do, to be honest, with an NHS striking scenario. But there we are. Let's get a gaff as well. Final gaff of the day, final gaff of the week. This is Christian's producer gaff with Jeremy. I call him the world's most expensive newspaper reviewer, the one and only Mr. Jeremy Kyle.
I love this.
Very good morning to you.
This is great.
Isn't it great?
Can I just point out how amazing the service for breakfast is this morning? I haven't been up this time for a while, so I just set my alarm for like 10 to 5 in the hotel.
10 to 5, easy enough, yeah.
Phone goes 10 to 4. Your amazing producer, Christian, let's give him a shout out. He obviously pocket dials me and then realises he doesn't say morning, just or sorry, he just goes, puts the phone down. So I've been up 4 days for this.
Yeah. Jeremy Kyle with me yesterday. Jonathan Gullis is here. Very good morning to you.
Hey, Mike, how are you doing?
Very well indeed. Nice to see you. Have you passed any picket lines on the way in?
No, I didn't see any, but I'm sure I'll have zero sympathy for those doctors.
No, I had a bit of a set too with one of them who came on.
She went on to you about what she earned.
Yeah, because they never do. They go, oh, this is how much we get an hour. Yeah, but tell us how much you actually make. She wouldn't do it. And how much do you want? You know, because she's making, by our estimation, around about 80 grand a year, which is no bad salary. And, you know, it's no reason to go out on strike and put people's lives at risk, is it?
No, not at all. And this is the problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
The public seemingly were empathetic years